It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. First show from our new attic studio. I hope you'll enjoy it. We've got a great panel to celebrate it with Abrar Al-Hidi from CNET, Shoshana Weissman from R Street, and Andrew Chow, the author of this new book, Cryptomania. We'll talk about Cryptomania, the DOJ antitrust suit against Google. It looks like the DOJ has won, but what will the penalty be? And AI regulation and KOSA, the Kids Online Safety Act. Why sometimes too much regulation is a bad thing. All that coming up and a whole lot more. Live from the attic studio, it's time for Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 992, recorded Sunday, August 11th, 2024. Why not pudding? It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the show where we get together with the best journalists in the business and talk about the week's tech news. And it's a little different looking today because we, as you know from last week, we shut down the Twit East Side studios, and I'm in my attic right now. And weirdly, I just happen to have an attic that's perfectly decorated for this. It's lit, everything. It's just, it's an amazing thing. Hey, great show planned for you today. We welcome back Shoshana Weissman from rstreet.org. Always a pleasure to see her. She lives in a pineapple under D.C. Don't look now. There's a giant hot dog sneaking up behind you.
There is.
Yeah, unless that's part of your work to regulate processed meats in the marketplace.
It's that. It's mainly that. Not entirely.
The hot dogs don't like you. Hi, Shoshana. Great to see you. Welcome. Also here, Abrar Al-Hidi from CNET, formerly CNET, now CDNet. I don't know what they're going to do with the name.
All the letters, yeah. We're just
all the letters. Great to see you. Have you been with CNET long enough to have remembered when CNET owned ZDNet?
No, I joined CNET in 2017, but I keep hearing the lore, and it's fascinating to hear it continue. On to the next chapter.
I'm part of that lore because I was the fourth employee at CNET.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and when I came to, they kind of, Halsey Minor kind of, he called me, and he had his office was in a abandoned railroad car. Well, it was nicer than that. It was decorated. It was an old railroad car in San Francisco. And he didn't talk to me for 6 weeks. He completely ghosted me, and then called me in to his office and said, "Look, Ziff Davis is looking for people." Hint, hint. Ziff Davis is looking. He gave me the job listing. He never said you're fired. He just said Ziff Davis is looking for. So I guess I learned my lesson. I went to work for Ziff Davis, and so I've worked for both.
I love that. Wow, that's a really fun origin story. We got to talk more about that. I love it.
Yeah. Well, the sad thing is Halsey was looking for investors at the time, and he said, if you had $10,000, I could give you a pretty big chunk of the company. And I said, I don't have $10,000.
Yeah.
And now I don't have a big chunk of the company. So no, it goes around. What goes around comes around. Hey,
Well,
somebody else
great.
we want to welcome, first time on the show. He's an author, brand new book just came out. Time Magazine's culture correspondent, Andrew Chow, is here.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Andrew.
Great to meet you.
Timing is perfect on this book, Cryptomania, Hype, Hope, and the Fall of FTX's billion-dollar fintech empire. And by the way, it's a really good read. It's on my bedside table because it's a great story, and you are very good at making it real. It's not a dry story. You've got the scenarios in there in the True Time magazine fashion. It's really, really great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it just came out on Tuesday. It's filled with real characters, real people. And, the hype and the hope from the title is back in crypto now.
Oh, no.
For better
Is
or
it?
for worse.
Oh, no.
Yes, it is. So I'm sure we'll save that for later in the show.
There's a little scenario in here. I'll just give you an example from the book. At the peak of NFTs, remember the Bored Apes Yacht Club? On November 10th, 2021, Beeple, who was one of the guys behind the Bored Apes Yacht Club, appeared on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Fallon announced he had bought his first NFT, a Bored Ape, And in January, he dedicated several minutes of an interview with Paris Hilton to the Bored Ape Yacht Club. They each held up printouts of their apes aloft to a confused and nervously giggling crowd. Many Tonight Show viewers sensed something was amiss. They knew better than Jimmy and Paris and the whole gang and Beeple. Although Beeple came away with some money.
So Beeple was actually not behind the Bored Apes. He was another artist, but he was
a big guy, right? He released, I think, the most expensive NFT, which was all of his works in one.
He sold a group of NFTs for $69 million. That's, yes, million. And that was one of the sort of the catalysts that made all of us go, what the hell is happening and why is so much money flowing into the space? A few months later, there was that. I don't know if you guys remember this Jimmy Fallon interview, which was one of the most excruciating 30 seconds of television history of just Jimmy and Paris holding up their apes, saying, "Isn't this cool?" And the audience is like, "Is it? I guess it's cool."
Is it? Fallon's sailor cap wearing ape reminded him of himself, he said, because, quote, "I love yacht rock and being breezy."
Is something what an adult male would say.
That's, in a way, the whole crypto thing is an embarrassment. And yet, as you say, it's back. In fact, Donald Trump addressed the big Bitcoin conference a couple of weeks ago and said that the United States was going to they were going to have the Fort Knox of Bitcoin.
For years, Donald Trump was posting on social media about how much he hated Bitcoin and was skeptical about it.
It's not real money, he said.
Exactly. How it seemed like a scam, how it was going to threaten the US dollar, and he was just not a fan. When he was a president, he did nothing to help it. And suddenly, about maybe 2-3 months ago, he actually decided that he's a huge proponent of Bitcoin.
Wait, these guys have money? Oh, I like them.
Yes. So I would say, that there are plenty of reasons that he has offered. Not enough reasons, I would say. Most of it is scripted. But yes, the crypto magnates have an enormous amount of money still, especially as the market has
I think that's really the bottom line, isn't it? Right? Because money in America, money buys elections, unfortunately. Sad to say.
The Winklevoss twins, who are deep into crypto now, each pledged $1 million to the Trump campaign. And, Trump has shown a penchant of going wherever the money is. He also, at that Bitcoin conference in Nashville, he was selling sort of like meet and greet tickets for about $800,000 a head. So he understands that this is a very muddied space and that maybe he can, get ahead a little bit. So right now he's reading speeches that talk a big game about how he's going to put Bitcoin in the National Reserve. He's never going to sell. The whole Bitcoin mining industry is going to be in the U.S.
Oh, yeah, that was another thing he said. And I actually wanted to ask you, he said, every Bitcoiner knows never sell your Bitcoin. Is that true?
There's a phrase called HODL, H-O-D-L, which is a misspelling of hold. And it's a refrain on crypto Twitter, which basically commands...
Diamond hands.
Exactly.
Right?
You got your diamond hands out. You're never going to sell. You're going to buy, and you're going to hold on for dear life.
Just remember what happened to Hodor in the Game of Thrones. That's all I'm going to say. It's not a good It's not money until you turn it into dollars. Oh, people are going to yell at me for saying that.
Oh yeah. If you've ever met a crypto brigade, they're passionate.
Mad. Yeah.
And they're mad, and
all right.
They hate anybody who speaks any sort of skepticism. So look forward to that in the coming days. They're probably in the chat right now, actually.
But Bitcoin did hit a record high recently, and it's over 60,000, right, at this point.
Yeah, so my book traces sort of the rise and fall over the pandemic, where it jumped from maybe $10,000 all the way to $69,000. And then after the FTX crash, jumped or fell back down to 17 or 18. So Sam Bankman-Fried, who's one of the, I guess he's the villain of my book, precipitated a lot of the bad mechanics that contributed to the crash. But yeah, so it was down to 18,000 and then it rocketed all the way back, climbed up to 70. Then there was a giant flash crash last week that was just part and parcel of a larger market
Down to
crash.
50. From 70 to 50.
In the blink of an eye. So that just shows how volatile this stuff is. It can go up really fast. It could go down really, really fast. Despite a lot of the market participants talking about, oh, it's not volatile anymore. It's grown up. We're integrating it into all of the traditional systems, which should be worrying for all sorts of reasons. But we're going to be on the roller coaster for a while, as much as some people would like it to just crawl into a hole. Its belief system sort of transcends facts a lot of the time, and it's almost like a religion for so many people. Yeah. So we're still going to unfortunately have to be having these conversations for a while, especially if people like Trump remain in the public arena of politics.
And of course, as the author of Cryptomania, brand new from Simon & Schuster, you might want to keep that going. Let's everybody thank you. Buy this book. Actually, it's really a good read. Anyway, I wanted to thank you for being on. I didn't realize the book just came out. That's great. I've actually had a galley, I guess, for a while and really enjoyed it. So well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Biggest story of the week, though, and usually I save the sad stories for the end of the show, but I think this is such a big story. It's going to be our lead, which is the passing of Susan Wojcicki, who many, many years ago rented her garage to a couple of young guys from Stanford named Sergey Brin and Larry Page, and became one of the earliest employees of Google. You may remember she ran YouTube until a couple of years ago, when she retired for health reasons. Well, now we know why. She had lung cancer, and she passed this week. But everybody who knew her sings her praises. Really a tragic story. She was only 56, but a very important Googler.
Yeah, that was quite jolting. I had the pleasure of meeting her very briefly once a couple of years ago at an event, her and her sister Anne, and just a very brief exchange, but they were both so sweet. And, it was a complete shock. And it's even when you have just a very brief interaction with somebody and to know that they're gone, it's still very jolting.
She actually, Anne founded 23andMe. So it's really an interesting family. And I think it was their mom's garage, right? That they rented to Google. Or maybe not. She was working at Intel, according to the Washington Post, rented the garage of her Menlo Park home to Larry and Sergey for $1,700 a month, which is a lot for a garage, but maybe not in Menlo Park. I don't know. That's where PageRank was invented, and Google was launched. She was employee number 16, their first marketing manager. She launched AdSense, which you could say, really powers Google to this day. Google Analytics, Google Books, Google Images. The distinctive Google Doodle was her idea on the site. She, in 2006, said, we should buy this thing called YouTube, which was kind of crazy in 2006. I don't know if you remember, but YouTube was being sued like crazy, especially by NBC, because people kept posting clips from Saturday Night Live. And I remember interviewing the founders of Google, of YouTube, at the time saying, how are you going to survive when all the content on your site is basically piracy? Well, maybe they had some inside insight because obviously Google buying them in 2006 kind of transformed the site, and she became its CEO in 2014. She also helped shepherd the acquisition of DoubleClick. So really, in a way, the modern Google was a creation of Susan Wojcicki. Yeah. I see you nodding, Shoshana. You think it really didn't look like YouTube could possibly survive in 2006.
No, it's so interesting to think about that, hindsight is, of course these platforms were going to do great. Of course they knew. It's so interesting, too, because a lot of platform problems when they get acquired happen because of like copyright and intellectual property issues. And they're happy to kind of be handed off to someone bigger. I love hearing the retelling of like how all this stuff happened. And I'm a dork for thinking through that stuff. So I'm loving what you're talking about.
We interviewed one of the founders of Google, Steve Chen, on our show Inside the Net. Amber MacArthur and I did back in fact, I remember Amber was the first to show me YouTube in 2004. I was doing a show in Canada, and she was my co-host, and they were still airing that episode until very recently. So people must have thought I was a complete idiot because she said, "Hey, Leo, there's this site called YouTube. It's cool. You could put your videos on it." And I went, "Oh, that's interesting. I never heard of that." And people seeing that last year must have thought, "Really? You're a tech guy? You never heard of?" But this was back in 2004. We later interviewed Steve Chen, and at the time, I remember NBC was hopping mad, because they kept posting clips from Saturday Night Live. Having Google behind you helps in those cases. And I think NBC saw the light. In fact, it brought Saturday Night Live back from the dead, if you ask me. So
yeah, I mean, one of the first clips to really explode on YouTube was Lazy Sunday, Andy Samberg's rap. Which, as you just said, it was huge for Sandberg's career and just making SNL cool again and just showing how clips could spread so much faster over the internet. I don't know if you guys are, like, I'm sort of the perfect age of remembering how, like, memes really dominated that early era of YouTube before we even knew what a meme was. I'm thinking of, like, the lightsaber kid, the Numa Numa guy, Chocolate Rain. These were all, like, these proto...
Chocolate Rain.
Yes.
Yeah.
These proto memes that sort of set the template for how culture is still going to spread, 2 decades later.
This was before TikTok. This was TikTok before it was around. I mean, this is how everybody saw this. How old are you, Andrew?
32.
So you grew up watching YouTube. My kid's 30. I remember coming home and he and his high school buddies they weren't watching TV, they were watching YouTube. You grew up watching YouTube.
I remember, like, when it came out and how novel and exciting it was. It was so glitchy and the videos were so low quality, but it was able to show us content that was, like, very juvenile but seemed to relate to teenagers in a way that, like, being on TV wasn't speaking to us. Also, I just wanted to, so my Time Magazine colleague, Belinda Luscombe, wrote a profile of Wojcicki. Sorry, how do you pronounce her name? Wojcicki.
There's an extra C. No one knows why. Yeah.
In 2015, that's a really good read, but this is sort of a story from her early life. She grew up on the Stanford University campus next to the Danzigs. George Danzig created the simplex method, an algorithm for linear programming considered one of the top 10 algorithms of the last century. The scene in Good Will Hunting, in which Matt Damon's character solves a math equation on the board, is based on an incident in his life.
No kidding.
So this guy Danzig, who is her neighbor, grew lemons, and at a young age, the sisters used to pick the fruit and sell it door to door for 5 cents each. People used to call us the Lemon Sisters. They thought it was a great deal, she said.
Wow.
The parallels with her current job are hard to miss. She brings something made by someone else to other people's homes for an unbeatable price. And there are 2 ways to regard what she delivers. It's either the product of a genius or a lemon. In any case, it's a great deal.
Oh, that's beautiful. Good. I'll look for that Time profile from a couple of years back. Time did name her one of the most influential people in the world, 100 most influential people in the world in 2015. And she actually, I think, spearheaded the move from being kind of a source of juvenile groin kick videos to educational videos. She was one of the people who said, this could be an education platform. Salman Khan had probably done a Khan Academy around that time. She said, we should be hosting those kinds of videos. And really, if YouTube has any value these days to the general populace, it is that, isn't it? That you can go there and you can find out how to do almost anything on YouTube and learn almost anything on YouTube, even the simplex method, I suppose, if you had a mind for it. I do not.
Yeah, I think that's what's so cool about it. It's so versatile, right? It's like, okay, my washing machine stopped working the other day. I went to YouTube and looked for videos. And then on the other hand, when you want to just unwind, you put on some, your favorite comedian and you just, it
probably should scare the pants off network television and broadcasters and even streamers like Netflix. I talk to people all the time. That's their one and only source of entertainment is YouTube. Everything's there.
It's like this weird fine line where those broadcasters and those streamers do and should post clips, but not too many clips because they still want you to subscribe and pay. But they want to tease it enough that you're like, oh, this is good. I need more. But yeah, it's a really fine line to walk.
Yeah, I'm glad that Andrew, you mentioned the lonely Island video, because the video that I remember first from YouTube was Dick in a Box. But you didn't say that, and I'm proud of you for not mentioning that. Thank you. I really thought you might go there. And if you haven't seen that, I don't, although it's pretty darn hysterical. Google is in the news big time this week because they lost their antitrust suit to the DOJ. The Department of Justice has been suing Google as a monopoly. The judge, Amit Mehta in Washington, D.C., said that, in fact, Google illegally monopolized the search market. He particularly pointed out their exclusive deals. This was on Monday, saying that their $26 billion in payments every year to Apple, to Samsung, and to Mozilla, the makers of Firefox, essentially were anti-competitive. Google's distribution agreements, he wrote, foreclose a substantial portion of the general search services market and impair rivals' opportunities to compete. I mean, that is, if there's a, Shoshana, that's the definition of antitrust, right? You use your market monopoly to keep people from competing.
So I haven't had a chance to dig into the full thing yet. I've been very, very exhausted with KOSA and age verification. And
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Oh, yeah.
But that's why I haven't had a chance to dig into this yet. My colleague has, and my colleague Josh Withrow wrote about it. But basically, we disagree with the court on a lot of stuff. And one thing that I don't think the court really got to from what I saw preliminarily is just that people search in very different ways. Like, if I'm looking for, I know this is very nerdy, but if I'm looking for trailhead pictures or pictures of a hike, I'm better off on Instagram or AllTrails searching there. If I search on Google, I might get something, but the images aren't very good that way for me. I sometimes start searching on Amazon or Shopify for products rather than Google, because Google Shop doesn't usually do as much for me as that. There's a lot of complexity here, and I think a lot of times judges and lawmakers define markets far too narrowly rather than realizing the broad ways in which competition happens. Also, I mean, some people prefer Safari, but you can always still use Safari. No one's stopping you from doing that. And when I have Safari up, I just close it out for Google. It's a choice that a lot of consumers make. So I don't really buy where the court's coming from. I think it's just like Google is a victim of its success in regard to search here more than anything.
Yeah, a number of people, we were talking about this, I think, on Mac Break Weekly. A lot of people, I think it was Alex Lindsay, said the problem is the courts are always behind the game, right? So the DOJ went after Microsoft just before their monopoly in browsers was dying anyway, and would have died probably anyway. I'm not sure I agree with that. But that's the point you're making, is that people are using... You know, I keep hearing millennials are using TikTok to search, or Zoomers are using TikTok to search.
Yeah.
I find hard to believe.
It's true, though.
You're nodding, Abrar. You use TikTok to find stuff?
It's me. Yeah, it's...
Wait a minute. Okay, let's be honest. When your washing machine went on the fritz, did you go to TikTok?
I did, actually. Can you believe it? Because I was going to say it, but then I thought about it. I did a Google search first, okay? And then I saw...
And it was useless because all it did is offer you new washing machines.
So then I went to TikTok, and then I actually got what I needed. And I did, I pulled up the suit here because it says, among Gen Z, I'm a millennial, but I'm 30, and I I feel like I'm kind of Zillennial, but not actually, but I feel like it because I'm on TikTok all the time. But apparently 63% of people say they use TikTok as a search engine who are Gen Z. But
that just boggles my mind.
Crazy,
although I've had this
right?
debate with my daughter, who's also 32, and she said, Dad, you're just so old fashioned. Nobody uses Google anymore. TikTok is the home of dancing and singing videos. How does that help you in search? I don't understand.
I
know I'm a boomer. I know.
No. This is a very valid question. I think it's something that people are wondering. And there is singing and dancing, but there is a very real person, real world aspect where when I'm searching for a product or I want opinions on a product, I will go to TikTok to see how real people feel about it because they will be honest. They'll say like, okay, this really worked well for me. I would not advise this, but like even like for like medications, I'm like, how did people react to this? Which is awful. Please don't do that. But like talk to your doctor.
Well, when you eat your Tide Pods, you really should wash it down with a lot of water.
That's exactly what I'm searching. But yeah, for those kinds of things where you want like a real person who may have experienced the thing that you're experiencing, people upload everything to TikTok. So it's highly likely that you'll find something, but please fact check what you find. But still.
I feel so old. I'm sure that's what people said about YouTube too. What, you mean the groin kick video site? That's where you go to learn how to do simplex coding? No, come on, man. But TikTok does focus on shorter videos.
Yes, although they've been pushing longer videos. So there you could even upload up to 30-minute videos, which I hope to God I never stumble upon a 30-minute TikTok video.
Yeah,
but apparently that's an option.
No, you just swipe. I mean, 30 seconds in, you swipe no matter what you're looking at.
Right? But they're experimenting with that, I guess, in the same way that any video platform is. You start with the 15 seconds and you build up.
Do you agree with R Street, Shoshana's lobbying firm, that Google isn't you're not saying they're not a monopoly, Shoshana, or he's not saying, your colleague.
Well, they have the majority of the
They're
stuff.
totally, like 80 or 90% of search, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is done through Google.
But
that's a monopoly.
That's not everything that's required to be a monopoly, though. Like they have to be actively stopping competition, unfair practices. And I know that.
It seems to me paying Apple $20 billion a year so that Google's the default search on Safari, that seems pretty anti-competitive. Is it not?
What I don't get, though, and I mean this genuinely, is I don't understand why they would pay that because everyone who gets an iPhone switches over immediately anyway, like that was already happening.
I don't know if they do. It's the tyranny of the default. I think you can, but people just do whatever is the default usually, right?
I don't know. Any device I've had, I always switch over to Google for stuff. Safari annoys me with some of their settings, and then Internet Explorer.
But when you're on the iPhone, you're still using WebKit. You're not using Chrome when you use Chrome because Chrome is required by app. But another, by the way, anti-competitive move. Chrome is required by Apple to be WebKit, to be Safari with a Chrome on top of it, a Chrome interface.
Oh, I didn't know that. I only have Androids, but they're saying Apple's a monopoly too, and I'm like, I have another kind of phone.
Well, all right. It's a tenable point of view. I'm just curious, Abrar, you agree?
I don't know. I feel like that brings up a really interesting point. I feel like my immediate reaction was, okay, shocker, Google is deemed a monopoly. So
it seems obvious.
Yeah.
Right?
So I feel like I need to dig more into that alternative viewpoint, and I am absolutely intrigued by that. So I'm not going to make a decision until I know more. But it is kind of like they're kind of everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess it's not. Simply being a monopoly is not sufficient. That's not being big, and it often seems like Congress feels like being big is the bad thing, but that's not illegal to be big,
right?
Yeah, that's what worries me.
Andrew, go ahead. Yeah,
I was just reading about this a little bit, but yeah, I mean that's sort of what Google's lawyers were arguing during the case. Is like, sorry, we're successful. Like,
sorry.
From what I can see, it does seem like Meta is pointing to some pretty specific monopolistic
Meta the judge,
practices.
not the Zuckerberg.
Correct.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Judge Meta, which is very confusing.
Yeah.
Yes. But as you mentioned, paying smartphone companies and browser makers billions and billions of dollars so that Google is the default search engine seems monopolistic to me. And also to Shoshana's point, why are they doing it? They already had such a lock on so many people's minds and imaginations. But I do think, as you said, Leo, just like the habit forming process of if just you have a default browser, a lot of people are just not going to change it. And that's very powerful.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to say about this is Judge Mehta cited a specific case many times in his ruling that goes back to 2000. This was like the last big antitrust ruling in tech against Microsoft. And you had mentioned this earlier at the top, Leo, of like the majority of computers just running Windows software, running Internet Explorer. And there was this major ruling in 2000. Now, I would love to actually go back and see, was Internet Explorer's dominance already on the wane, or was this ruling instrumental in allowing, Firefox and Chrome to rise? I would love to.
That's the case I make, is that you wouldn't have a Google if it weren't for the DOJ shutting Microsoft down starting in 1998, and the final consent decree, I think, was early 2000s. That really opened the door for Google. And so in general, I think that's kind of the point. It's interesting. Judge Mehta did not say Google had a monopoly in search, of all things, pointing to Amazon and I think Walmart. Wait a minute, that can't be right. They're saying, and Meta, there are other companies that do search, so they don't have a monopoly in search. And by the way, the real question is, what is the remedy going to be? He's made the decision, but now there'll be a hearing for next month to decide a separate trial, the timing for a separate trial for the remedy. So there's going to be a whole nother trial. It's not clear what the Justice Department wants. They did say that the ballot solution that European regulators used to choose search engines didn't work. Nobody switched. So it implies that they are not going to seek some sort of ballot when you sign up. That's a terrible. Remember that happened with the Microsoft case in the EU. They had the browser ballot. And when you first installed Windows, you got to choose which of a number of obscure browsers you'd prefer to use. Apparently, that doesn't work when you're talking about search. Bloomberg says the agency could demand the separation of Alphabet's search business from other products like Android or Chrome. So it could be a breakup. The judge could also stop short of ordering a full breakup and just say, yeah, these exclusive search deals, you got to stop those. The only person that hurts is Apple, which gets $20 billion a year from it. It's about a third of its services revenue, and a big services quarter this quarter, thanks to Google in large part. It really hurts Firefox. That's most of Mozilla's funding comes from Google. So I don't know if that remedy is a very good remedy. It doesn't hurt Google. It's yes, stop spending billions of dollars on these other companies. Ooh,
it's such an irony. It's such an irony because Firefox and Mozilla, they're all about open source technology and having these open systems.
Yeah.
But yeah, sort of the financial reality is that 80% of Mozilla's operating budget is coming from Google. So, you can agree with the ideals of Mozilla and open source and these strong antitrust laws, and then they are sort of being helped by the hand that feeds them. And all.
Incidentally, I want to point out, the judge did not mention TikTok as a credible competitor. Weirdly, he mentioned Amazon, and he did mention Walmart. I wasn't hallucinating. And other retailers have begun offering advertising related to searches on their own websites. So apparently, weirdly, that's letting Google off the hook when it comes to their search monopoly. All right, let's take a little break. We are doing the first twit from the attic studio, but I'm so glad that I have other people working in their attics, except for Shoshana, who apparently is working on Hot Dog Hill. But actually, is that the Microsoft Bliss wallpaper with hot dogs? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is it a commentary? Is that a subtle commentary on Microsoft?
No, it's just when the Snapchat hot dog meme was really popular, this was my favorite thing to come out of it. It's perfect.
I missed that one. What is the Snapchat hot dog meme?
That was their plan to monetize when they started doing like artificial, like virtual, like characters that danced around. The hot dog was the first, and everyone was laughing at them because they're like, this is how they're going to monetize. Like, this is their plan. So I fell in love with it instantly, and it's been in my heart ever since.
Oh, well, there you go. And she's up there in Hot Dog Hill. Andrew Choi is also here. Brand new book, Cryptomania, just came out. Really, really a good read. And I'm not just saying that. I actually read it. Hype, Hope, and the Fall of FTX's billion-dollar fintech empire. Thank you for joining us. Andrew works at Time. Not a bad place to be a correspondent for. And also with us from CNET. What was the reaction inside of CNET, Abrar Al-Hidi, to the acquisition this week by ZDNet? Were people like freaked out or what?
I think I think that would be natural for any acquisition, but this one, I think there was more excitement just because Ziff Davis feels like a good fit, and
it's
so
in fact better. Can I just say better than private equity, than Red Ventures?
Although, say it.
Who owns Ziff Davis?
Ziff Davis is public, and
there you go.
And so I think it'll be nice to start something different there, a new chapter. We're all staying optimistic.
Yeah, the only bad thing is, once again, you have to change your email address.
Yes, that's really the biggest thing. Maybe get new business cards. It's a whole thing. But you know what? I can't complain.
When Benito saw the story, my producer, he said, "Oh no, how do I get a hold of people now? What's their new?" He was worried about that, right, Benito? You were worried about the new email addresses.
Yeah, because I was working at CBS Interactive. Actually, I was working at CNET when they switched over to CBS Interactive.
Right.
Oh, you've been through this.
So I was there for that. Yeah.
Oh, I get it. No wonder you were worried.
You will get a special email with my new email address. You'll be the first person, I promise.
Thank you so much,
good.
Abrar.
Yes, if we are in touch with you at some odd address, please.
I wouldn't let that happen to you.
Don't let that happen to you.
Leo,
all right, I seem to have frozen. Have I frozen? Again. Did I freeze myself? I think I did. What did I do? I've been messing with something and I screwed myself up.
In Zoom, it looks like you lost your camera in Zoom.
Ah. Okay.
You could be reanimated in many years now that you're frozen at a time of your choosing. So,
well, that would be good. I will take that. What did I do?
Last time we just toggled your camera in Zoom on and off, and that
toggled my camera in Zoom on and off. That's Anthony Nielsen, who is our technical expert at this point. And how do I do that?
In Zoom itself, that little camera.
Yeah, the camera icon on the bottom.
Left. Oh, yeah. I stopped it by accident. I clicked a button.
Oh.
There you go.
Next thing you're going to do is say, Leo. Oh, okay. We're still working this out. Also, it's a little sweaty up here. Okay, thank you all for being here. First show, we're going to have a little first show problems, but we're appreciative. We're glad you're all here. Our show today, we're very glad to have our sponsor, ZipRecruiter, with us. They've been such a great partner for us for so long. You know, finding great candidates to hire these days especially is like finding a needle in a haystack. You're going to get a lot of resumes, but not enough candidates with the right skills or experience. And then there's another problem. If you find somebody you really like, you're competing with 10 other companies trying to hire them away. See, this is where ZipRecruiter is our advantage when we use ZipRecruiter, and it's your advantage too, because ZipRecruiter does this cool thing. As soon as you post, they're going to find amazing candidates for you fast. They're going to look at your posting. They're going to say, oh, because they have more than 1 million current resumes. People come to ZipRecruiter looking for jobs. They're going to say, we got somebody for you. And they'll send you that person's name, their resume. Then you decide, is this a good person? And you invite them to apply. And I got to tell you, that's a great secret weapon. When you invite somebody to apply, you jump ahead of that list of everybody else trying to hire that person because they want to be with somebody who wants them, right? Who doesn't? Right now, you could try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. ZipRecruiter's smart technology identifies the top talent for your roles quickly so you can invite them. That's an amazing additional trick to give you an advantage. They also have tags. You can say things like remote work available, things that make people look twice at your listing. So ditch those other hiring sites. Do what we did. Let ZipRecruiter help you find what you're looking for, the needle in the haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. For us, it's generally within the first hour. I know because Lisa's in the morning, we're at breakfast. She says, we got to replace Ashley. She got another job at another place and she's moving. And what are we going to do? We got 2 weeks. She posts on ZipRecruiter and literally before lunch, she's going, oh, look, we got we got another great candidate. That's how we found Viva. You were the great candidate, Viva. Try it for free at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/twit. That's ziprecruiter.com/TWIT. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And we thank them so much for their support of our show, This Week in Tech. And the first show in the attic studio. Somebody said, your camera's too good. You could never let them see you sweat. We have a great panel. It's great to have you, Andrew Chow. First time on Twit, author of Cryptomania, is a correspondent at Time Magazine. We love having you here. Abrar Al-Hidi, we love you from CNET, ZDNet, and from rstreet.org, the wonderful Shoshana Weissman. She lives in a pineapple under D.C. She is also Senator Shoshana on Twitter. You still using the Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, the real senators and congressmen are still there. So as long as they're there and the reporters are there.
That's kind of interesting. They haven't left it. Elon keeps getting in trouble, though. I have to say, he's not. He has found all sorts of ways. Now the latest is the former chairman of the board of Twitter, who had a huge amount of Twitter stock and was supposed to be paid off when Elon took the company private, is suing for $20 million, saying Elon never gave me my money. Yeah. What is, how can he even, I guess he's also, since he never paid the rent in San Francisco, did he ever pay the rent? They're moving now. They're moving down to San Jose.
End of America.
Yeah. X. But
Elon's made it clear how much he hates San Francisco and how much he thinks it's overrun with all the wrong people.
He hates everything, though. He also said we're getting out of California, although he hasn't done that yet. But they're moving Tesla and SpaceX out of California to Texas because he didn't like some rule that said schools didn't have to report pronouns to the parents. And he says, well, that's no good. I'm leaving. I swear, Elon.
That's why that article when I saw that article about the moving the Twitter HQ, I was like, oh, okay, I guess they must be leaving California. I was like, they're going to San Jose. No. I was like, what?
It's down the road.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Cool.
I guess it's an interim thing. They're moving temporarily. Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually aren't done with the Google stories. Let's see. Google also got in a little bit of trouble for an ad that they published that they paid for on the Olympics. Did you see the Dear Sydney ad? This was a Google ad with a parent talking to Google's AI, saying, "Help my daughter write a letter to her favorite athlete," which pissed people off. It's like, that's not parenting. That's not parenting. Have an AI write the letter. No, have the kid write the letter. It was called Dear Sydney. It was developed in-house to promote Google's Gemini AI platform. But according to Ad Age, viewers had a difficult time looking past its miscalculated storyline. Google has pulled the ad. Got a lot of airplay last week during the Olympics, including NBC Primetime, also on CNBC and USA.
Yes.
People are turning against the word AI, aren't they?
I'm dying to talk about AI in the Olympics here. I don't know if, I've been following the Olympics like everybody in the world. It's just such a unifier, and you can see in the numbers on social media how much people, it's the biggest, it's bigger than Harris Walls, it's bigger than
partly because they did it right this time, right? Instead of the Tokyo Olympics when they chopped it up and they messed it up. Now, thanks to streaming, you can watch anything live. You can watch it later. Peacock's done a great job. So I think that's been a lot of the reason for the interest, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. But because it's such a big event, obviously the biggest industries and the biggest companies are going to try to come in and, monetize or advertise in all these different ways. And AI is like, the buzz industry or buzzword, buzz industry, buzz bubble of the moment. So we're seeing all of these interesting like deployments of AI around the Olympics in sort of this massive way. Some good and some bad. So one of the first ones relates to Peacock, and NBC decided to use. So there's this legendary sportscaster named Al Michaels, they've started to use his
AI
voice.
Al Michaels.
Yes. They trained an AI on his voice. I mean, he's one of the, greatest sportscasters of the last, many decades.
Yeah.
He's slowing down. He can't, be there to do daily recaps anymore, I suppose. So they trained an AI in his voice. And now if you go on NBC and sign up for it, at the end of the day, you can get like a little personalized Al Michaels recap of what happened based on what sports you're interested in. And the upshot is that Al Michaels was on board. He said he was scared at first, but then he was like, it sounded so good. I was excited, but also terrified. A lot of the users say that it's like not actually a bad usage of AI, perhaps, because if they've been accustomed to hearing Al Michaels' voice for decades, and now they get a sort of facsimile, maybe like a 90% version of it. Obviously, I would argue, just to hire another sportscaster, like it's okay. We can move on, but this is a tool that hasn't been glitching, it hasn't been telling lies, and it's been like fairly accurate about what's been happening at the Olympics.
That's encouraging because I want to retire and let an AI do my shows. And if they do a good Have you heard the Al Michaels recaps? I haven't heard them.
I haven't, but one of my friends, a writer for Slate named Nitish Pawa, just wrote a piece about it. He was doing it every day. He's a big Olympics fan. He was actually like, it was like helpful in like digesting and hearing what had happened that day. Again, like, would rather just have a real person with expertise tell me about this.
I think, though, I know because I've watched some of the secondary sports on the Olympics, and some of the announcers for those lesser sports are not great.
Yeah.
They have so many events that they have to get every person who's ever sat in front of a microphone, and apparently some people who haven't. And so I understand that they wanted somebody well-known, a sound that was well-known. Al Michaels I love Al Michaels. He was the announcer during the 1989 World Series game, the San Francisco Earthquake game, and he did an amazing job of that. I know because I was at the game and I was listening to him as I was trying to get home. And so he's legend. But there's a certain style and a flow and a cadence, and if you're just doing a recap, AI could simulate that pretty well. It wouldn't be creative.
So that was one use of AI rolled out during the Olympics that seemingly wasn't a disaster. I'm going to run through a couple more that I've been reading about. Okay, Intel, they're making a play. They say that they've been, they can use technology, sort of body scanning AI technology to identify young athletes and if they have significant talent in certain areas.
Well, we won't know how that works for a few years, right? I don't know about that one.
They said, so first they said they went to some villages in Senegal and scanned more than 1,000 children and identifying who maybe has this, like a burst of energy,
that's a little dystopian.
Significant
Really
so we can totally debate
if we have selected these young people to be our new athletes.
Yes, Hunger Games vibes a bit. Then they set up a station outside the Olympic Stadium where like kids could basically go up and measure like how fast they are out of the blocks, or power, reaction time, and strength. And yes, there's a lot of people who would see that and just see dystopian flashing.
Trust No One in our Club Twit Discord chat says his vote is for John Madden AI, Telestrator and all. See, I would love that. You just go boom, pow. I think that would. I wonder if AI could do something with that much personality. That would be impressive. There was an article on CNN yesterday that said brands should avoid the term AI. This is a study actually published in the Journal of Hospitality Marketing and Management back in June. It found that describing a product as AI lowers a customer's intention to buy it. They sampled participants across various age groups, showed them the same products. The only difference was one was described as high tech, the other as using AI. Vacuum cleaners, TVs, consumer services, health services. In every single case, the intention to buy or use the product or service was significantly lowered when we mentioned AI in the product description.
That explains why Apple avoids the word AI.
It's Apple intelligence, not
It's
artificial.
Apple intelligence. It's machine learning. They know how to do it. They know how to not scare people away.
Right.
When you watch WWDC, they did not drop AI as much as Google did every 2 seconds. And so it'll be interesting how they talk about it with the upcoming iPhone event. But yeah, I think Apple is the key example of someone, knowing how to not scare people away.
By the way, I have to give credit. The study's author is Dogan Gursoy. He is the Taco Bell Distinguished Professor of Hospitality Business Management at Washington State University. That's a chair. I am the Taco Bell Distinguished Professor of Hospitality.
That's the greatest title. I failed. I failed.
Well, you have something to aspire to, Shoshana. Something to shoot for in your life. I guess it doesn't surprise me that maybe it's just burnout, right? That AI, there's so much AI everywhere we look that people are just burnt out on it.
It's like burnout, and it's also just the way that generative AI just kind of seemed to come out of nowhere all at once. Like, obviously, AI has been powering a lot of things for a long time, but with things like ChatGPT kind of coming out of nowhere and saying, who needs to know how to write when ChatGPT can do it? And then you have guess who's writing articles, writers. And so if they feel like they're threatened by something like artificial intelligence and Gen AI, then you're not going to have the warmest reception in that regard. And then, public opinion is swayed as well. It's just this domino effect. But I think the way that it kind of, this surge of AI everywhere is not only leading to burnout, but also distrust because there aren't any clear guidelines yet. It's here and it's everywhere and we don't know what it's going to do.
That's actually a good point. I mean, creatives are the kind of the canaries in the coal mine when it comes to AI, and they're very nervous. I think that's one of the reasons people didn't like this Google ad.
Yeah.
Is because why would you have your daughter use AI to write a fan letter to her favorite athlete? Yeah. Shouldn't she be writing that? I think people see this as somehow replacing humans and humanity in a way.
Yeah.
So I understand why they're burned out on it. We may not have a choice. We may be stuck with AI.
Yeah.
But
and I think that the ad from Google just adds to the perception that these companies that are trying to roll it out, don't really understand what people want or are trying to roll it out for exactly the wrong reasons. The idea that Google could get behind this ad and think up the chain of command that it was that people want not have their daughter write a letter to their hero is just not the use case that there may be other use cases for this stuff, but if the companies in charge, the techies that are trying to convince us to use it are coming up with this sort of stuff, it really is, the ick factor is incredibly high. I think we saw it also going back to, we were talking about the displacement of creative people. The CTO of OpenAI, Mira Murati, said this year, maybe AI will replace creative jobs that shouldn't have existed in the first place. And that just seemed like such a slap in the face to, who are the creative people whose jobs shouldn't exist exactly. So I think even if these tools are really useful for some things, there's been some shooting yourself in the foot examples of where these tech companies are a little misguided as to they're so excited to get these products in every single industry that the public perception is suffering.
Yeah.
I love this quote from Joanna Machajewski. Her book, Snake Bitten, apparently on pre-order. She said, I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing. Not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes.
That's so real. Oh
it's one of my favorite quotes about AI.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, just to add to what Andrew was saying, yes, I think the reason that ad faced so much backlash is because it's taking away something that is innately human and tender and cute and wholesome. Whereas I think there are other AI ads that have done a better job of showing the potential to actually make your life easier and not take away something that is meaningful. And I think one example, and I hate to give OpenAI a pat on the back because I feel like they're doing a lot of really creepy things, but one thing that they did really well is they partnered with an app called Be My Eyes, which is for people who are blind. And ad where they had somebody who was blind kind of hailing a cab and getting all these instructions on, or getting all these descriptions on, their surroundings. That's a really good example of how AI can actually be helpful for people and actually fill a void. So if companies did a better job of researching those angles and providing services that are actually beneficial, then I think they would fare a lot better.
Be My Eyes is that's a perfect example. It was an app that was designed for people with vision problems, but it required humans, right? You would go into the store and you'd say, what does it say on this label? And a human would have to, you'd use the app and the human would have to join you on the app and tell you. Now with OpenAI, and I haven't talked to any blind people who've used this yet, but the AI is doing that. So you don't have to wait for a volunteer to dial in. It'll do it instantly. I think this is a perfect example of, AI can be, I'm not anti-AI. I'm actually I'm known around the network as the AI bull here. I'm kind of pro AI, but
Leo, I've got a question for you as a baseball fan.
Okay,
what are your thoughts about AI umpires?
I think that's a great. Okay, there's a perfect example. In fact, I don't think they used it in Olympics. They've already had cameras in tennis, right, as line judges, using AI as line judges. That's a perfect use for AI. It's either in or out. It either hit the line or not, right? There's in football, we've had it was very controversial when both baseball and first was football and then baseball added instant replays. Very controversial. People worried it would slow play down. It would undermine the refs. It would cause problems. And it's actually proven really a useful tool in football. I don't think any football fan these days is against instant replay. And they started using it in baseball last year, I think, right? And it's been an improvement. The AI is fine with me when it's very clear. I don't know. We've seen umpires in baseball make complete. I mean, every umpire has a different strike zone. Is that how it should be? Right? The batter checks who the home plate umpire is before he goes into to bat because he wants to know where the strike zone is going to be. It's different for everybody. And when you look at now, for a long time, this was controversial on TV. They didn't used to show the strike zone. They now show it for every pitch. So if the ump is completely off base. I think it's just a matter of time. It makes sense for AI there. Do you agree, Andrew? Are you a baseball fan?
I am, yeah, and I agree. I mean, the beauty of a sport like baseball, the humanity in it does not come from the umpires. As much as I respect their craft.
The inhumanity comes from umpires.
But it's what these amazing athletes are doing
right.
within very specific confines, and if the confines are malleable, that just it worsens, the beauty of the sport, I would say. So the more that you can enforce strict the rules of the game so that people can focus on excellence, I think it's tough because it is amazing how most umpires develop this skill over years, and it's such a craft, but it is a thing that maybe a machine can do better.
Maybe it should be more science than art.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I'll correct myself. Poco says baseball replays started in 2014. I have not been following baseball as much as I as I probably should. And Surge Strip in our Discord says, baseball's boring. Okay, we'll move on. Let's see. All right, I think this is a good one for you, Shoshana. You may remember the Biden administration, the FCC under the Biden administration, attempted to restore net neutrality. U.S. court has now blocked the Biden administration FCC net neutrality rules, saying it really is Congress's job to do this. The FCC rescinded the open internet rules in 2015 under a Republican majority, under a Democratic majority last April. They reassumed regulatory oversight of broadband internet. I have to say, I have always been a big supporter of net neutrality, but I didn't see, maybe I wasn't looking, but I didn't see a complete decline in the quality of internet or the prices of internet in the U.S. after 2015. The nightmare that people predicted didn't seem to happen. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which had delayed the rule set on Thursday, would temporarily block net neutrality rules, scheduled oral arguments for this fall, possibly even after the election. Where do you stand on this, Shoshana? I know that essentially our street is more libertarian. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, we're about free markets, so for us it's about competition. We've opposed net neutrality. I don't do telecom. I refuse to do telecom. It's too much. It's just too much. I can't do telecom. But I do think there's something to be said when advocates say, if this happens, then this will happen. And when that doesn't pan out, it doesn't make the advocates look good. And it's not just advocates, it's lawmakers too. I know some people have pointed to examples of how getting rid of net neutrality harmed in certain cases, but the disastrous consequences didn't really come to play. Even when I work on age verification policy, I try very hard to make sure everything I'm saying is rooted completely in fact. If I'm making a prediction, I have ample reason to believe that I'm right about it. And I think a lot of net neutrality advocates kind of failed there and have some egg on their face and need to explain going further when they make predictions. Okay, why is this the case now when it wasn't then, if that makes sense?
The principle of net neutrality seems to me very clear and proper, which is that every bit on a company's network should be treated equally. And so that means companies like Comcast shouldn't be able to say, oh, you, Netflix, you're going to be fast, but we're going to make sure Disney Plus is slow. They shouldn't be able to treat different bits differently. And that was the basic principle of net neutrality. I think it's probably the case that market forces kept companies like Comcast from, doing any of the evil, nefarious things they could have done absent a net neutrality regulation. For instance, they could say, "Hey, Netflix, you got to pay up." For a long time, a lot of internet service providers said things like, "Well, Google's free riding on our network; they should pay for all the traffic that they use on our network." When in fact, of course, we as users are paying for the access to the network. And YouTube's bits should be equal to anybody else's bits. It didn't happen. It could have happened absent net neutrality regulation. I don't know. Is it market forces that kept it from happening? It's not like we have a competitive internet service provider market in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's funny with the internet. It's one of those things where some of the sort of natural monopolies that are starting to erode in a lot of cases, and when when it's natural monopolies plus such an over-regulated area, regulation touches every bit of the internet, or at least internet service provider, not the internet itself yet. But it makes it kind of hard to know why things happen, in my view. It's kind of the same with healthcare. Everything's so regulated that it's if you move a piece, you're not 100% sure if something happens or doesn't happen, why it doesn't, because you have the insurance levels and you have the provider levels. And I think that's a bit of it here, that I think advocates got it wrong, but I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure why it panned out the way it did.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is not your bailiwick. I understand. I'm putting, you're not in charge of all libertarian positions in the world.
Just most. Not all, just most.
But I mean, also, I want to be very fair because I'm a huge advocate for net neutrality, but I want to be fair. We didn't see the negative consequences we thought we might see. Of course, it's not a very competitive environment in the U.S. Most people, something like 80% of people in the U.S. have at best two choices for internet service: a phone company and a cable company. That's not. I mean, sitting here in my attic, I have no choice. I have to use Comcast for the access. Comcast has been going up and down. I was terrified the last few weeks. It's been dropping out for 3 or 4 minutes. Who else can I choose? No one except Starlink. So we did order I'm looking up. We did order Starlink. At some point, I'll have that as a failover. But it's kind of terrifying to do what we're doing here, which is live streaming for hours a day, relying on Comcast. That seems like a risky business. At the studio, we had 5 different internet service providers for redundancy.
Hey, Leo. So this is Benito.
Hi, Benito.
So I lived in the Philippines for a big chunk of my life, and there is no net neutrality there. And what I can tell you about having no net neutrality is that one company gets to dictate the entire internet.
Right.
And I don't like it. It's not good.
I think the court's point of view probably was this is a question for Congress because it really requires reclassifying broadband. I can't remember if it's reclassifying broadband between being a publisher. I can't remember the choice. It's been a long time. But it's something Congress should probably weigh in on. Ultimately, the FCC acts at the behest of Congress. Congress has to make the laws. The FCC has to implement them. So I think it is probably fair of the court to say, let's hear what Congress has to say about this. And then I would encourage Congress to enshrine net neutrality into law because I think it is, in principle anyway, the right thing to do. All bits should be created and delivered equally, regardless of where they're coming from. And you don't want to let an internet service provider get to decide, we think Comcast can ask Netflix to pay more or ask Google to pay more. They should all be equal bits. They should be undifferentiated.
I think it's just good when it comes from Congress in general because the back and forth with net neutrality is good for nobody.
And that's what's happening. Republican administration, the Democratic administration, and it's not. You're right. Congress has to say it.
And even sometimes when agencies do have authority and they might be able to do this, I think it's still just better when you have these big decisions that it really comes from Congress, exactly in this case, so that it's not like every couple of years you switch back and forth and have to figure out how everything works.
Yeah. It was a distinction. Thank you to our chat room for reminding me. Famous in our YouTube chat said it was whether to treat internet service providers as common carriers like the phone company. The phone company doesn't get to decide who to charge. They can't charge Benito more than they charge me. To use a silly example, is our
Benito? Actually, I would love to hear Benito some of the adverse effects that you felt.
Okay, so I think the biggest one and the most upfront one is that Facebook pretty much owns the internet over there.
Benito, you have a camera. Let's see your shining face.
I didn't put myself in a.
We can't pull you up. Okay,
I'd have to. Yeah, sorry.
Right.
I'll figure that out eventually.
I want to be able to see you. We don't usually see Benito. We only hear the voice of God coming from above, but he's here. He's here with us.
So to answer Andrew's question, it's like all of the things coming from and to and from Facebook happen really quickly, and everything else is really slow. And a lot of people who don't pay for internet access, who get a quote unquote free internet access for their phones. That's basically the Facebook internet. So Facebook is free and everything loads on Facebook, but nothing else. You don't have data for anything else, only Facebook.
Yeah.
So I mean, that might be actually a positive. That could be considered a positive for those who can't afford internet access, who still can get some sort of portal into the internet. But for that to be controlled by one company, I don't like how that feels. But
you remember that this was Facebook's plan. They offered it to India, something called internet.org, which was a Facebook internet that would be provided to everybody in India, even people who couldn't afford internet access. But it was mostly Facebook with a little bit of different stuff thrown in. It was interesting because the Indian regulators said, we know a little bit about colonialism here, and we don't think we want that. So they forbade that. But maybe they did. Maybe is that what you had in the Philippines? Was it internet.org? Was it Facebook internet? I must have been.
It's possible, but I think it's more that
Facebook just paid the carriers.
Facebook
obviously.
paid
Yeah, that should not be not be allowed, I think. But again, I have to be fair and point out that we didn't see any horrendous failures as a result of the change in rules in 2015. So we shall see. By the way, credit to Tim Wu, who coined that term, net neutrality. Been wanting to get Tim on one of our shows for a long time. We'll see if we can get him on and talk about it. Should we? Let me see. Yeah, let's take another break. I think it's time. You're watching This Week in Tech with our wonderful panel. It's great to have you on, Andrew. I think we want to get you back on a regular basis. Andrew R. Chow is the author of Cryptomania, Hype, Hope, and the Fall of FTX's billion-dollar fintech empire. He's SBF is in prison for, what, 20 years? How long is the sentence?
The sentence is 25 years. He'll probably serve around 21.
And they've been ordered to pay everybody back.
Yes.
Which is interesting because I thought the money was all gone.
It was at the time. The crypto markets have rebounded. That's the sort of interesting part about this. I think it would take a little longer than maybe the 30 seconds I have here to explain why a lot of the creditors are going to get a lot of the money back while Sam's still being very guilty in the court of law. Both can be true at once.
Yeah. I mean, it's just luck that Bitcoin went up, right? I mean...
He basically made, to vastly oversimplify, he made a lot of giant bets using customer money. He knew that he was, all of FTX's terms and conditions said, when you deposit money into your account, it's going to stay there. We're not using it. Right. He went and he took it, and he was spending it on all sorts of crazy investments, on
houses
meme coins,
for his parents.
Yes, not to mention the real estate, which maybe is a good investment. Waterfront Bahamas real estate.
It doesn't let you off the hook if the investments you illegally made turned out to be good investments.
Yes, so one of the big investments he made was into the AI company Anthropic. Actually, he was sort of an early investor into Anthropic, whose value absolutely exploded due to the AI boom when Sam was sitting in a prison. And that asset alone was able to make so many, creditors whole. And this is something what Sam's lawyers were trying to argue in court, that we should be able to talk about Anthropic because it was such a savvy investment on Sam's part. He knew where the market was headed. And I was there for the whole trial in New York in October. The Judge Kaplan, said to the lawyer, this is like if you rob the bank and then you go buy a Powerball ticket and then you win $50 million and then you say that because you can return the money, you didn't steal the money. That's not how the law works.
Perfect.
So basically, he did not allow them to talk about Anthropic at all. But yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of the creditors are going to get a lot of their money back, not all of it. But, I think one that sort of obscures maybe the moral choices that Sam made of deciding to use the money when it wasn't his. And then also the real harm that it inflicted upon people who lost access to their money for 2 years. People who put, their life savings, $40,000, $100,000, $800,000 into, an account that then became frozen for a good 2 years and had a lot of people had their lives upended. So yeah, I think there are some people that would argue no, it wasn't how much of a crime could it be if the money came back? You can argue that. I would disagree.
So we've learned something here. Sam Bankman-Fried won the Powerball, and congratulations, you're still in jail. It's great to have you. Great book. It's a great book, Cryptomania. You see, you did a great job of explaining that. Perfect. That's why it's such a good book.
you.
Shoshana Weissman
Thank you, Leah.
is also here from ourstreet.org. We are going to get to KOSA 93, was it 93-3 or something in the Senate?
I forget the pro votes, but it was 3 who voted against it.
Only 3 people
I
voted
love.
against KOSA. Now it's going to go to the House, but I want to know what this latest status is. Of course, this is something you've been very actively following. In fact, 2 years ago, you wrote the definitive piece on it and why age verification is a terrible idea. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. It's great to have you. And Abrar Al-Hiti. We always love having Abrar on the show. Technology reporter at CNET and a regular on Tech News Weekly. I hope you're going to keep doing that, even though Mike is in his basement now.
Oh my God, I look forward to the next episode. I'm sure his setup is almost as good as yours. If not, we'll see. We'll see who has the better one.
He was going to do hands-on technology this morning. We've canceled Ask the Tech Guys, partly because it's almost impossible to do the call-in show in this environment.
Yeah.
So he's going to do hands-on tech at 11 o'clock on Saturdays, Pacific time, in the same time slot. And he'll answer a question and maybe sometimes do reviews and things like that. He was going to do it from the studio until he found out that we have ripped everything out of the studio for the attic. So I got an emergency call this morning about 10:30 saying, can we use the studio? So he was actually in here today doing hands-on technology from the attic. And I think it's great. He'll be in the basement, though, once he gets that all set up and working. So it's great to have you. And Abrar, you can stay where you are. This is really just, we're now like the rest. We're like everybody else. Nobody has a studio. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, welcome to reality. So, this is great.
We're just back to reality. That's all. Our show today brought to you by Mint Mobile. We love these guys. I know you do too. Why? Because you love a great deal. I love a great deal as much as the next person, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. So it's got to be easy, right? No hoops, no BS. It's really easy to get wireless for $15 a month. Honestly, the most time-consuming part of the whole process is the time you might spend on hold waiting to break up with your old provider. They don't want to give you up. I don't know if you've noticed that. You could port your number over to Mint Mobile. You're turning that $90, $80, $90, $100 a month cell phone bill into $15 a month. They don't like that, but you're going to love it. I loved it so much that I actually said, I'm all in for a year. I ended up saving a lot of money by buying a year at a time with Mint Mobile. I love my Mint Mobile phone. You can get started right now. Go to Mint Mobile, M-I-N-T, minty fresh green, mintmobile.com/twit. mintmobile.com/twit, T-W-I-T. You will see that right now all the 3-month plans, including the unlimited plan, by the way, are only $15 a month. Now, they all come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text. They do it on the nation's largest 5G network. It's T-Mobile. So if you got good T-Mobile coverage where you are, you're going to have exactly the same coverage for a whole lot less. You're getting it from Mint Mobile, no, not T-Mobile. You can use your own phone if you want with any Mint Mobile plan. They will convert it over with an eSIM or a regular SIM at no charge. You could port your phone number over. Again, you're going to have to talk to the other guy. They're legally required, by the way, the other guys, to give your phone number over to Mint Mobile. But sometimes, they go, really? Really? You really want to do that? Port over your existing contacts and your existing phone, and you're going to be ready to go. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile. Get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. Now, to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, you got to go to our website, mintmobile.com/twit. Okay? Very important, because I want them to know you heard it here. mintmobile.com/twit. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/twit. Now, here's how it works. $45 upfront payment required. That's $15 a month for 3 months. New customers on the first 3-month plan only. Speed slower when you get above 40 gigabytes, and on the unlimited plan, that's a lot. You're not. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. mintmobile.com/twit. We're big fans. I'm a big fan. I love Mint Mobile. It makes me wonder why I ever paid more. mintmobile.com/twit. Thank you, Mint Mobile. KOSA. What is KOSA? The Kids Online Safety Act. Is that right, Shoshana?
Yes, it has a new acronym now, though, and also it was passed in Senate as like an amendment. It's like a 107-page amendment to some random unrelated bill to stop excess paperwork, which this has a lot of reporting requirements, so...
Do they do that? It feels like they do that intentionally. They attach unpopular bills to like defense spending so that it has to be passed, right? They do that all the time.
So this wasn't a defense spending one for once, which is nice because I often have to be like, hey guys, maybe remove this from this really big defense spending bill because this has nothing to do with it. This one was just reducing paperwork. And I do this stuff a lot, but I actually had trouble finding the new version of the bill. And then I was like, okay, cool, here's the amendments. And I had to click through so many amendments to figure out the final version. And they put some bad stuff back in that I'm pretty sure they had taken out. So I'm like just crying, reading KOSA for the 97th time in its current version.
So the Senate passed it.
Yeah.
Ron Wyden... Weird bedfellows. Ron Wyden, Rand Paul both voted against it. And who was the third that voted against it?
Mike Lee.
Mike Lee, that's right. For different reasons, I might add. But weirdly, it passed by this vast majority in the Senate. I've heard some people said, well, that was a safe vote for them because no one wants to be the guy that his opponent says, he doesn't like kids very much because he voted against KOSA, knowing that it wouldn't pass in the House. Is that a fair representation of why so many senators voted for it?
No, unfortunately, so KOSA has something like 68 co-sponsors, which is really rare. But it's, of course, because it's for the kids, and what's in it doesn't really matter. And it's actually really frustrating because not just myself, but many of my allies have talked to different offices about the problems in it. And they'll write off those concerns as ridiculous and actually amend some of those concerns out and then later amend them back in. But of the remaining senators, I know a couple at least had concerns about it. Some thought it might be worked out in the House, or at least that's what they were saying. And the House seems to be going back and forth on whether or not they're interested in taking it up. I'm really hoping they won't, of course.
Now,
but is
it the Paperwork Reduction Act that they'd vote for, and then KOSA would just be along for the ride? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's like, if you're writing a paper or like an op-ed or just some document and someone adds in some comments and you accept those comments, imagine if those comments are 107 pages. That's what happened.
So broken. This system is so broken. Other people in other countries must be saying, wait a minute, what?
I mean, what's amazing here is that they knew that there were so many concerns from civil liberties groups and all different kinds of reasons, too. Most groups kind of agreed on the First Amendment problems and certain other problems, but instead of facing them and saying, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board or figure out a better solution here, they're like, we'll just hide this in here and let's see what happens.
Is it possible that, I'm trying to give some cover to the senators who voted for this, because there's no reason to vote for this. Is it possible they thought the courts would throw it out, that it wouldn't survive a First Amendment challenge, and so
it won't. There's no way this gets past the First Amendment on many counts. But I don't think they've accepted that. Even lawmakers in the states, when I've kind of made clear to them that, hey, I know even if you want to do this, just know that this is going to be held up in the courts. They just don't think so, despite so much precedent. I've written up so much precedent on why age verification for social media can't work, and it's just like citing Scalia and Kennedy in past courts. And this, they try to get around the age verification problem by saying, none of this shall be construed to require age verification. But if you have to know who the kids are to comply, and it's not just when they know who's a kid, it also says if they had knowledge where they should have known that it was a kid. So it's like, of course they're going to age verify here. This is ridiculous. There's no other way. Yeah.
They have to. So tell us what KOSA does. By the way, they also amended COPPA to change the age from under 13 to under 18, or under 17, I guess. So that is problematic in and of itself, because I think a 16-year-old is different than a 12-year-old when it comes to parental consent and so forth. But let's focus on KOSA. What is KOSA, and why is it problematic?
So KOSA started as an age verification bill, basically saying that platforms couldn't allow on certain minors and they had to get parental consent for other minors. There's a lot more in there, but that was a really core piece of it. The current version, in its current form, because it has gone through a lot of versions, basically says that if they know that there is a minor on the platform, then they have actual knowledge or implied knowledge, basically where they should have known, because maybe someone's looking a lot at SpongeBob or something like that, or maybe there's other indicators that they should know that it was a minor. They have to make sure that those minors have basically parental type controls for themselves, which I don't think is a bad idea to provide kids with that. And parents also get to edit those controls. They don't have direct oversight of what the kid's posting or their messages, but they do get to say, okay, my kid shouldn't spend more than this amount of time online, stuff like that, which in itself isn't a terrible idea, except when you when you mandate it by government, it creates a need for identity. Yeah.
Apple gives you that capability. You can set that up. That's completely legal to set that up for your kid as a parent. That's how it should be. It shouldn't be government doing that.
Exactly, because when government steps in and creates this, then if you don't provide those parental controls to parents or children, then you're violating the law. And the only way to make sure that the parent is the parent and the child is the child is identity verification. It's beyond age verification, because you have to make sure this is the parent, this is the child. Here's proof that they're related this way. They've never really explained what's supposed to happen if parents disagree, if the parents are divorced, if there's maybe even 3 or 4 parents because of different custody issues. I mean, all this stuff is really possible and common, and they haven't addressed any way to, what's supposed to happen in these cases. And then another part here that's really important is the duty of care. It basically says that they have to avoid showing the child. They don't say content. They say, avoid using algorithms to show the kid content that can cause them anxiety or depression, as defined by the DSM and its current version. But the strange thing is the DSM is from the American Psychiatric, Association, which is a lobbying group, which is kind of strange to defer it that way rather than put it in law.
For years, the DSM did not define PTSD as a mental health issue.
Really?
As an example, yeah. So, and what happens is if it's in the DSM, you can't get insurance to pay for it. You can't treat it. You don't have a code for it. There's all sorts of problems. The DSM has way too much weight, but that's another topic for another show.
No, that's interesting. I haven't dug in there yet.
The DSM is problematic. As you point out, it's a lobbying organization. It's not necessarily widely, it is widely used because insurance companies use it, but it's not necessarily widely supported. By the way, what causes depression in kids? One of the bill's sponsor says that widely used educational materials that teach about the history of racism in the U.S. causes depression in kids. So we can't be having any discussion of systemic racism because that makes kids depressed.
Or climate.
Kids
anxiety.
Speaking out about mental health challenges or trying to help friends with addictions are likely to be treated, this is from the EFF, the same as those promoting addictive or self-harming behaviors. They'll be kicked offline. TikTok is going to err on the side of prudence if this is the law of the land because they want to stay in the United States. So you're going to see all sorts of, I think, counterproductive results from this. But the worst part is the age verification because that really is a massive privacy violation. Some members of Congress have said, oh, no, we've got these new AI-based age verification techniques. We can just tell from looking at you how old you are. I'm a little skeptical on that.
Oh, there was a great NIST study. Have you checked it out?
No. NIST study on age verification?
Yeah, on age estimation tools for facial recognition.
What did they say?
Oh my gosh, it's something like if you're 17, there's a 50% chance they'll say you're under 17 or over 17. So around the margins is where it matters, and they're getting it wrong around yes, I love this study. It was so well done, and they pointed out where it does well and where it does poorly, but this is not ready for prime time.
In these pictures that I'm showing you, if a person, in this case a NIST staff member, changes facial expression or wears and then removes eyeglasses, all 6 of the algorithms NIST evaluated gave age estimates that vary around the person's true age, with frames extracted from cell phone video. The age estimates that remain above or below the subject's true age of 58 that vary by a few years from frame to frame. In other words, it's completely inaccurate. Although it knew he was an adult, I presume. He's 58.
Sure. But what happens when you're like 21 and trying to get on social media?
Yeah. Oh,
And then, of course, you're going to have to do like the real verification, then the ID, the social security number.
That's the problem. Now, they did that. They tried this in the UK, right? And you would have to go to a pub to tell people to prove your age. They've abandoned that, as I remember.
That's amazing. I didn't even know about the pub thing. I mean, that's just incredible.
Well, that was one of the places they proposed. But the problem is, of course, in order to do this, to do age verification, you really are going to have to end up asking for, as you say, identification. And some third party is going to now have all of, your credit card, your driver's license, whatever it is. This is just a non-starter in so many ways. Of course, everybody wants to protect kids. I want to protect kids.
Right.
No member of Congress is going to vote against a bill that says it protects kids. The real question is, does this bill protect kids? And does it do it in a way that also protects everybody else? And I don't think the answer is yes.
Worse yet, I have a new piece out showing that this is going to make child identity theft way worse. This is a weird new string I'm on now. I also have one coming out showing how to solve a chunk of child identity theft that the government itself is causing, because of course it's causing a chunk of child identity theft. But this would make it even worse because, kids don't use their credit. They don't monitor their credit. It often is that it'll be years and years before they find out that their identity has been used for fraud. And then after that, a bunch of them need, like a large percentage of them need mental health care to deal with the effects of it. And lawmakers are just not having this conversation. They're just like, no, identity verification, age verification, sure, whatever, let's go with it.
They just can't replace parental supervision and parental interest with government oversight. It's just not possible. In 2019, the Brits dropped age verification. They said attempting to regulate all internet content to ensure it's safe for children is unfortunately not an achievable aim. Any steps taken will in truth be partial and come at costs. It's very unclear that age verification, especially when combined with internet censorship of legal content, would reach a reasonable balance. That's from the Open Rights Group. It failed in the UK, but we're going to try it. Maybe we can do it better. So what is the likelihood that the House will pass this?
They've gone back and forth a lot on whether or not they're going to take it up, so I just don't know. We were pretty certain that they weren't going to. There's been a lot of back and forth. I think their concerns differ from ours, which is okay, but I think their concerns are a little bit easier solved, unfortunately. So I could see this getting through, but the courts are just going to slap this down. I mean, these laws in the states are already being stopped by courts. The courts are reminding them we've ruled on this many times already. You could totally, read that precedent, which is an option. But instead of doing that, they're just going ahead with this as if there's no precedent here, as if there's no cybersecurity concerns here. And this is really going to hurt kids. The identity theft angle is really big. Experian has some really good data here that I use for my piece on it. But basically, when you create treasure troves of child identity information, it gets hacked. That's why schools are such big targets.
Yeah.
It's that same reason. So what do you think is going to happen here?
Somebody in our Discord is pointing out that Louisiana, the courts in Louisiana did, in fact, protect the age verification law. I don't know if that's on appeal. This was back in October. The adult entertainment group's lawsuit against a Louisiana law requiring sexually explicit websites to verify the age of their viewers was dismissed by a federal judge on Wednesday. I think it's under appeal. But that's the problem these days. I don't know if we know what the courts are going to do we?
I think in the circuits, I think it's going to be fine. Once we get even maybe to the Supreme Court, I think it'll be fine. The porn stuff is a little bit different too, just because the precedent that applies is a little bit different, and the First Amendment problems are a little bit different. Yeah. They still are there. It's a different conversation to a degree, and you don't run into the same child identity theft issues there because kids know that their identity wouldn't get them on there anyway,
Right. This I know is a couple of weeks old story, but we wanted to get Shoshana on to talk about it because I know it's been on your radar for a couple of years now. You've written a lot about it at our street, so I thought we wanted to get you on.
Oh,
So
thank you.
Yeah,
no, I love joining you guys. I've just been hiking.
Yeah. Were you going to hike today? Were you off in the mountains?
No, soon though. Soon I'm getting back to the mountains. I'm
Where are you
really
going?
excited. Colorado, I want to get in a lot more 14ers. There's one in particular my mind's just so set on. It has a sharp ridge, and I'm like, if I can do this, I'm going to feel really good.
What is 14er? 14,000 feet?
Yeah. I've done 12 of them in Colorado and one in California. I think there's 15 in California and 58 in Colorado. I want to do them all, but I won't be able. Some are just way too crazy.
Do you need oxygen at that level?
You can, but it would be like little spray bottles. I usually adjust okay.
I'm being facetious. Actually, I didn't think you would. Apparently you might.
Yeah, some people I see up there with like the little spray bottles, but those are usually the morons who are like, yeah, let me do this my first day at altitude. I'm like, yeah, you go, bro. Like, enjoy getting sick.
So do you train? I mean, do you go up there ahead of time and get used to the acclimate and all that?
Yeah. So I can adjust to like 6,000 to 8,000 feet very easily. I can even go up to 10 on my first day. And then I just have to slowly get to 14. But since I'm already adjusted now from my last trip, I have a plan. I'm going to do 12,000, then 13, and then 14.
It's too bad they don't have speed hiking in the Olympics because you'd be right in there with it.
I'm slow. I'm sloth. That's where the sloth comes in.
Okay, that's good. She is. We should explain what the chairman of the Sloth Committee.
Yeah, U.S. Committee, U.S. Senate Committee on Sloths and Sloth Affairs.
Yeah, very important committee work. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shoshana. All right, going to take a break. Come back with lots more to talk about. You're watching This Week in Tech, the first episode from the attic. What do you think so far? Do you like my attic?
Looks fabulous.
I love. This is my favorite.
Strong look.
Yeah,
good.
this is my. Get the Benito. Show him my the other one. The other one. There we go.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's the pretty shot. And see that seat right there? That's the guest seat. If you ever want to come out and be on the show, you can sit.
But Leo, you haven't used your sound effects board enough, and I feel like that's what the audience needs. There we go.
This is what everyone feared. Said I would do that. I do actually. Abrar did want me to play a special sound when I introduce her. Abrar Al-Hidi, ladies and
Better
gentlemen.
late than never. Thank you.
Yeah, I do have that. I am using what was built into this mixer. I haven't. Every time I try to load the program that changes the sound effects, it crashes. So I think I'm stuck with a handful of kind of classic sound effects.
Oh, good.
I won't use them, I promise. Our show today brought to you by Bitwarden. You know I'm a Bitwarden fan. Steve Gibson, our security guy, is a Bitwarden fan. Bitwarden is open source. It is the only open source password manager that works at home, at the office, on every single device you have with support for passkeys, hardware keys, free for individuals forever. Okay? That's pretty good. But it's also great for your business. It is a cost-effective solution that can dramatically improve your chances of staying safe online. And if you're a business, you absolutely need to use Bitwarden because I got to tell you, your employees are still putting Post-it notes on the monitors with the passwords. They're still hiding it underneath the desk protector there. They're not doing the right thing. But if you give them a great password manager, at least you have a chance of protecting yourself and protecting your business. Bitwarden just announced something brand new for business. It's called Collections Management. They have a whole set of settings. It lets owners of the Bitwarden account choose how much or how little access admins have to everything in the vault. So if you imagine I'm the owner of the Twit Bitwarden vault, but then we have managers in each department who have access to those particular passwords and so forth. And the collections management settings make it very easy for us to control who has access to what. They can be set so that users can create and delete their own collections, and those can be private so even the admins can't see inside of it. So that's very handy, useful for a policy of what we call least privilege, for example. Another possible setup would be to require full admin control for everything. So the admins choose it all. You don't let the users do anything. But the whole point is you have these settings. And with these new settings and a new can manage permission, you can choose how access control and sharing works at a very granular level in your Bitwarden organization. Bitwarden is great for business. It empowers enterprises, developers, and of course individuals to safely store and share sensitive data. It's not just passwords, by the way. I use Bitwarden's secure encrypted storage for my passport, for my social security numbers, for my family's social security numbers, and they're safe. They're in there. They're encrypted. And with a transparent, open source approach to password management, Bitwarden makes it easy for users to extend robust security practices to all their online experiences. Best part, you can get started with Bitwarden's free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan right now, or as an individual, free forever across all devices, includes passkeys, and includes hardware keys like YubiKey at bitwarden.com/twit. I have the individual plan. You know what I do? I give them $10 a year just to support them, to make myself a premium plan. I don't need to. It does everything I want for free. But this is a good thing to know if you've got family members. I know you use a password manager. Obviously, you're smart. But if you've got family members, people you know in your circle who say, that's too complicated. I don't want to use a password manager. I don't want to pay for it. You tell them about Bitwarden. It's easy to use. It's free forever because it's open source. And it's going to a big improvement in their overall security. You got to use a password manager. Tell them to go to bitwarden.com/twit. And tell your boss, too. It's great for business. bitwarden.com/twit. We thank Bitwarden so much for their support of This Week in Tech. They're longtime supporters of everything we do here. And we plan to keep using them for as long as they keep offering it, which I think, because it's open source, you can pretty much guarantee is forever. Thank you, Bitwarden. Well, let's see. We talked about CNET going to Ziff Davis. New York Times says this could be a sign of more possible media deals to come. What do you think, Abrar? I mean, it's kind of a sad story. The history of CNET, it was sold way back when, for CBS bought it in 2008. Remember when you were you there with CBS Interactive? I think you were, yeah?
I was in middle school. So no, I was not.
I didn't mean to imply anything. That was 2008. $1.8 billion CBS paid for it.
Yeah.
12 years later, Red Ventures, who was the owner for some time, bought it for little bit less, $500 million.
Yeah.
It is now has been sold to ZDNet for $100 million. Yeah. And that's what the New York Times is saying, that this is probably a reflection of, it's probably why I'm in the attic, to be honest with you, headwinds for new media, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is, it's a tough time for the industry. And I think that's why I'm optimistic about this next chapter. I'm glad there's still a legacy media brand that is willing to buy CNET, which is kind of core to tech news, and I'm hoping that, I don't know, I hope things get better across the board, across the industry. It's just really, really hard right now. So grateful to be in a position where hopefully good things are ahead, but yeah, it's
my friend Jim Louderback, who was a vice president at ZDNet for a long time. I worked with him when I was at ZDTV. He is now runs VidCon.
Oh yeah,
and he said that he recommended that your new owner, which we say ZDNet, but actually ZDNet is kind of also a spinoff. The chief executive, Vivek Shah, he said, Vivek, you should consider buying influencers. He said that's really where the brands are. He said buy Marquez Brownlee. I don't think Marquez is for sale, but and I think he might cost more than $100 million. But he's got a good point. It's the influencers who drive the market these days.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting position that a lot of media has been in, where you want to amplify the personalities. And I think there has been, this clear effort, at least at CNET, where we have a lot of experts in different areas, whether you want to buy a phone or a laptop, or you're choosing a cell phone provider or whatever it is, an internet provider. And I think shining a light on those people and their expertise becomes more and more important, because influencers are such a big deal. And because, as I mentioned earlier, I go to TikTok to see how real people feel about things. A lot of publications are realizing we also need to focus on the real people who work for us, who have all these real opinions. And so creating that connection on social media and doubling down on TikTok and Instagram, and really shining a light on those people who do work for these brands and aren't technically influencers, but can play that role and kind of juggle this walk this weird line between being this authoritative source, but also just being a relatable source.
Yeah. Actually, Andrew, you work for Time Magazine, which has gone through a few changes since the Luce family owned it. It's owned by Mark Benioff now, right?
It's true.
Salesforce founder. Does he own it personally? I can't remember. Does he own it or does Salesforce own it? Mark owns it, right?
Yeah, it's him and his wife, Lynn.
Must be nice. Yes, I think, what am I going to do today? I don't know. I was going to go run the park and then buy Time Magazine. I don't know. What do you think? Has he been I'm not going to ask you this. This would be mean. Has he been a good steward of the Time brand? I think so.
I would love to publicly say on record how grateful I am to Mark Benioff and how much he's done for the organization. I think if we just zoom out a little bit here, yeah, it sort of shows that the number of business models that work for these outlets is really winnowing. I think, some have tried, digital subscriberships. It's been a really hard road for a lot of outlets that are not the New York Times, just because a lot of people are just not really willing to pay for more than a handful or more than one subscription. I mean, you're seeing this in the streaming wars too, as well as like, oh, I have to pay for Peacock and HBO and Disney Plus. It's like people have a limit, and if they think they can get all their news from a singular outlet, they will. I think that's really hurting, more local papers who can't really compete with like the breadth that the New York Times has. I think we're seeing,
but they brought that on themselves. They fired their newsrooms. They got rid of. I mean, isn't that a self-inflicted wound, or is it? Just they couldn't afford it?
It's a sort of chicken or the egg situation. My position is that, how did newspapers make money back in the day? They did it on advertisements, your local florist or whoever was in the shop. They knew that they could reach the most amount of people from people picking up the paper. And then you have basically Google coming along and taking basically all of those ad dollars, companies very quickly realizing that it was so much more efficient and effective to advertise on Google than in newspapers. So you have a massive winnowing down of ad money, especially for print, and then you can't fund the print infrastructure, which is immensely expensive. That's why especially you've seen the magazine industry being hammered so hard.
Forgive me for not knowing this. Does Time does Time still have a print?
Yes.
It does, okay.
But it comes out twice a month as opposed to weekly. As it used to. Yeah. It's definitely really hard for a lot of most publications. I think the incentives have changed. You want more content. You want clickier content. And it's sort of...
that's what bothers me. That's where I think we've lost, because what happens is you get link bait everywhere. Everybody has headlines that says you wouldn't believe what happens next. And I think it's ruined our news ecosystem. It's just, even everywhere you turn, it's all sensationalism. I think that's a problem.
I think it's a problem. I think that a lot of it has been caused by necessity, and
I understand the economics of it. Believe me, I'm sitting in my attic. I mean,
it's really tough for what we think of as old school journalists who take a long time to report stories, especially in local areas. There's just no business model that I've seen that is sustainable. I'd love to hear if you guys have seen any business models that really work. No. I think maybe niche interests. If you get people that are really focused on specific areas, that can help.
Well, that's kind of what we are. Yeah. I think we're long tailish, for tech enthusiasts, but it's still hard for us because on the one hand, advertisers want scale. And niche does not necessarily produce scale. And so it's a very difficult, it's a fine line. You've worked for the Times. You've worked for NBC, right?
I wrote freelance for NBC, and I worked at the Times, yes, before I was
And Pitchfork.
Freelance for Pitchfork as well. And they are also struggling with, they had this amazing niche community. They got absorbed by Condé and, the identity crisis of what is an indie music magazine in the 21st century.
Even Rolling Stone isn't about music anymore. It's kind of amazing.
It's tough out here.
It's tough
That's all
out
I
here
can
in
say.
the real world. Did you go to J school? How did you get into this?
I started as an assistant at the New York Times.
That's the age-old traditional way of getting into newspapers. You start as a copy boy. Copy! And you go...
Yes.
I'm dating myself at this point. I don't think there have been copy boys in years, decades. But yeah, you started at the ground floor and you worked your way up. That's cool.
I was answering phones. I was fact-checking. I was doing that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the other paths into journalism, and this might be too process-oriented, but you could start at your local paper and then you're supposed to cover like the courts and the cops and all of that. And you start in Jacksonville and then maybe you can go to the Boston Globe and then you bounce around and you work your way into, the hallowed grounds of wherever you want to end up. But a lot of those local publications just don't have the City Hall beat anymore because they don't have the advertising money. So I would say there are a lot of journalists, like me included, who didn't start with that baseline, just like pickaxing on whatever beat, learning the ropes. It's totally changed in the last 2 decades, I would say.
And we're still in the era of kind of upheaval and disintermediation. It hasn't settled out yet. So it's hard to even know what it's going to look like in 10 years or 20 years.
I think we're seeing a lot of people with Substacks, actually. Like that is a potential
temporary.
path forward.
I don't see that as being a long-term. In fact, to some degree, I think it's because Substack subsidized it with VC money.
That definitely could be. And then Elon is obviously talking a big game. There's a lot of people who just hate the idea of the mainstream media and that it's bloated and that it doesn't it's slanted in a certain way.
Yeah.
But the idea of I forget the term he uses, but community journalism or renegade journalism of just folks on Twitter. And I think that works in pockets. And you definitely want independent small scale journalists. The problem is that good journalism takes a lot of time and resources, and the market is not incentivizing it in the slightest. So it will continue to shake out. There will be many, many headwinds for journalists and particularly outlets like mine going forward.
Shoshana, this is the free market at work.
It is interesting, though. One thing that I never thought about before is that you see some of the same trends with policy organizations. Some of it isn't bad that we do some more short form stuff than some other groups and it gets more attention because it's more readable and it's not in excess. But then there's still that the shiny think tank gets the grease kind of thing, where if we did more sensationalist stuff, if we were the Democrats are doing this or the Republicans are doing this, we would get a lot more attention.
There's huge pressure to be sensationalistic, isn't there?
It's just interesting because I never thought about it with think tanks in relation to journalism until now, because something he said, I was like, wait a sec, that's something that I was thinking about too. I don't know how all this gets solved, and some of this I think is human nature stuff, but it is interesting how I think this is happening across a lot of industries in a lot of similar ways, even in the fact that there's some random people doing terrible policy work, but some random people doing great policy work that I'm actually glad they're out there doing it. Some of them have Substacks, some of them don't. But there are these kinds of like similar trends we're seeing here. And I wonder where it goes, or if it's just going to constantly change and new funding sources are going to have to just be tried out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I read and subscribe to a lot of newsletters, not just Substack, you know, but there's a limit to how many subscriptions people can have. I just don't know how tenable that is in the long run. I don't know what the answer is. You know, I come from an era where there was a daily newspaper. In fact, I remember when there was a morning and evening paper, right, in San Francisco, and you subscribed to one or the other. There were 3 networks, and you would watch. Your family would either be an NBC or a CBS, or if you were weirdos, you'd be an ABC family. And I mean, there were very few news sources. And if you were really interested, you might get the New York Times as well as your local paper. That's all changed, and very much dramatically so. The cable news has replaced, network and local news. I don't know if you could say newsletters have replaced blogs, but I guess to some degree they have. And then there's intense pressure in all of these outlets to drive traffic, because that's how you make money. And of course, what happens if the pressure is to drive traffic, you don't publish 10,000-word white papers, right? You publish a couple of paragraphs that say the Democrats are screwing it up. And that's how you get traffic.
You know,
but I don't think it's really good in the long run for our polity.
I think one thing, and I don't claim to like have all the answers here. I'm not like, oh, journalists are being silly and they should simply, like, I have no idea what to do here.
I think they're clearly not being silly.
Yeah.
Very much, they're bleeding.
But one thing is, there are certain people who kind of stand out to me as like they're breaking through the noise a little bit, and I mean people outside of journalism. There's one guy, his name's Vincent Ledvina, and he shares basically how to learn how to tell when there's going to be northern lights. Like that's his thing.
Cool.
He studies it.
Talk about niche.
Yeah, but one of the cool things about it is that there's a lot of fake information on it to get clicks, and he calls it out. He's like, hey, you see this picture, here's how I know it's Photoshop, because the lines can't appear like that at that latitude.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a really good fact checker, and he's really good about sharing very accurate information. It's funny, his followers trust him because he's not being sensational. He's like, I love this. This is a core part of my life, but I want you to understand how you can see it. And he does he does all different kinds of stuff. But I think voices like his are something we need more of. Just those random people who really care about a subject, whether it's like knowing how to FOIA and they can be there to work with a journalist and help them figure out information about stuff, or whether it's, there's so many different possible areas. But I feel like that kind of strange influencer is something that there's a real market for, and that I think kind of combines the best of the new with the best of the old.
It's for sure true. I mean, Jim Latterback was right when he said that that influencers, that the individuals are the ones that right now are ascendant. Mm-hmm. And actually, tell me if I'm being too personal, Abrar, but you at CNET, you were on camera all the time. You were the face of CNET, and that was a smart move. From my point of view, here you have somebody who's really good. I know organizations hate it because once you become well-known, you're expensive, or you're going to leave and start your own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But you took a step back. Was that your personal decision, or was that CNET's decision? Or
it was a personal decision. So I started off at CNET on the writing side, and I loved it. And I never envisioned having a career on camera.
But you were so good on camera. You are so good on camera.
I appreciate that. And the opportunity arose where that team told me that they also appreciated my on-camera work that I did on the side. So I thought that's a really great way to boost my brand and build that skill set. And I'm really grateful I have that skill set. And then I moved back to writing just because I wanted to really focus on specific areas. When I was on the video team, I was doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful. But I think you do have have to kind of be a subject matter expert on at least a few key topics. And the best way for me to do that was to go back to the editorial team and be on the mobile team. And I'm really, really happy. So it's a perfect balance because I'm writing again, which I love, and writing is my first love, but I also get to do videos that accompany my articles. And so I'm able to tap into both that and still do my social media videos and things like that.
It's very old school. I want to go back to doing reporting. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I'm just an old man shouting at the clouds. Just ignore me, you young people. It's going to be fine, I'm sure, in the long run. I think about it a lot because I come from, this old school media, right? I started in radio when you did exactly what you were describing, Andrew, working your way up from the small market to the medium market to the big market. And then I went to TV, and that very much changed the ground rules. Everything had to be quick and fast and visual. And actually, I kind of really, when podcasting started, I was really happy to take a step back and do something like this, where we are a little bit more. We don't have link baity content by any means. We have 2-hour, 3-hour shows, and I'm glad that we found an audience. It's not a huge audience, but it's a big enough audience to sustain us. I'm really glad we found that. But I worry that we're not getting the information, especially when it comes to national politics. We're not getting the information we need. We're getting the information that drives traffic. We're getting the horse race coverage. We're getting all of that stuff. And I think that in the long run isn't good for society. Now, having said that, we are right now streaming on x.com. Hi, Elon. And in fact, I think we're the number 2 channel right now with 600 some people watching us on x.com. We're streaming on YouTube, on LinkedIn and Facebook and kick.com and Twitch. Because I feel like I've always thought you always want to be everywhere you could possibly be so that you get the largest potential audience, and then hope that what you're doing appeals to enough people to sustain itself. It's very old-fashioned. I mean, we're 20 years in on this one, and I don't know if it's a long-term sustainable thing. I think we hit it at the right time. I don't know. But see, I love sitting down with people like you guys, like Abrar and Shoshana and Andrew, because you're kind of in that, you still believe in content and thinking and talking and chewing things over and telling stories. And that's to me, in the long run, that's got legs. I hope.
I think so too. I hope so too. There's a lot of really important stories that need to be told, whether or not they bring you tons and tons of clicks, but they're going to bring enough clicks and they're going to be important enough that we got to keep telling them. Yeah.
Well, let's take a little break and we'll continue on with Andrew Chow, his new book. I give you a plug every time. Cryptomania. So you got it right here.
Love it. I love it.
Hype, hope, and the fall of FTX's billion-dollar fintech empire. If you all are nice, I'll read another excerpt. The writing is you're such a good writer. And did they tell, that Time Magazine was famous in the Luce days for a certain style of journalism where the articles all began with this first-person narrative. He stood up and looked around the trading floor and realized that the bell was ringing and it was time or whatever. Do they teach you that when you get to Time, or did you just kind of know it already?
It's funny. I've spent a little bit of time digging around the Times digital archives.
Do you know what I'm talking about? When I describe that style?
Yeah, a little bit. We all have sort of this image of Time in our head when there was this like hallowed Times glory days when it was just like telling people how the world was and offering like really great journalism. And then sometimes I'll read some of the pieces back from the decades past, and let me tell you, there's some really rough stuff in there. I was reading one that was like, like there's this young kid from Greenwich Village named Bob Dylan, but he'll never last. Like his voice is too nasally, and his story, his lyricism is you can't understand a goddamn thing about it, and he's just like too political, and you can see how well that went.
We all make mistakes. I know someday people will say Leo thought Vision Pro was not going anywhere. He swore up and down nobody wanted to strap a computer to their face, and how wrong I was. Let me read you. This is the opening chapter, just to give you an idea of the time style, because whether you know it or not, you nailed it. On the morning of February 11th, 2021, the 25-year-old artist Oo Agnetti sheepishly climbed into the passenger seat of his neighbor's Toyota Camry and hitched a ride to work. That's a classic time opening paragraph.
I want more.
Well, Leo, I'll come on anytime you want. This is great.
Don't you want more?
So many plugs.
He normally took an Uber or the bus to his job at his ad agency in Lagos, Nigeria. Oh, I can't wait to find out more. Anyway, it's nice to have you. It's great to have Abrar here, Abrar Al-Hidi, technology reporter for CNET. And of course, Shoshana Weissman from rstreet.org. I would like to put in a plug. I know you've got a lot of subscriptions. I know you're paying a lot of money for a lot of different things, but I would like to put just the teensy-weensiest plug in for our club. We want to keep doing what we're doing. I'm pretty proud of how we've made this transition to the attic. And we did it because we wanted to save money, because we wanted to spend your money wisely, if you will. And I not on an expensive studio, but on content. And I think that we're doing that. And we'd like you to join the club because it helps us continue to do what we're doing. We want to do that. It also, I think there's some great benefits. Thanks to the club, by the way, we're streaming on 7 platforms, including Discord. That's our Club Twit chat area, and that's a great place to hang out with other Club Twit members. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. You wouldn't even hear this, begging commercial if you were a member. You wouldn't need to. You're already a member. We have special events. Actually, we're going to do a fun event. I thought, now that I have the studio in the house, I thought I'd do some more special kind of stuff in the house. We're going to do a coffee event on Friday, this coming Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. We will stream it live. Mark Prince has been for many years the coffee geek at coffeegeek.com, and we're going to talk coffee, the best ways of making it, the techniques, the things you're looking for, the best coffee, all of that stuff. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I never thought it was worth a show. Something we do every single week, and we were kind of stuck in that model of it has to be a show so that you can get advertisers. So, and now we could just do stuff, kind of ad hoc stuff. So that's going to be the first one. It's this Friday. You don't have to be a club member for that, but if you want to encourage that kind of content, join the club. twit.tv/club twit. Stacy's book club is coming up and a whole lot more. Micah's crafting corner. Micah does crafts once a month. And you can join him as he's doing his crafts. It's a lot of fun. And I think the club is really a great way to create a community around what we do. We're glad to have you in the community if you're already a member. And if not, please join twit.tv/club twit. Our show today brought to you by ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN is like leaving your laptop just, sitting on the table at the coffee shop while you run to the bathroom. Most of the time, yeah, you're probably fine. But what if one day you come out of the bathroom and there's no laptop, right? So how does this apply? Well, everyone needs ExpressVPN because most of the time you're probably safe. You're not going to get hacked. But that one time it happens, you're going to wish you were protected. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network in a coffee shop, at a hotel, at an airport, you're streaming your data through a public network. Now, you might say, well, it's encrypted, right? I'm using HTTPS. No, but anybody on that network can see that you're there and can even do stuff to you to gain access to your personal data. It doesn't take a lot of technical knowledge. It just takes some cheap hardware. Maybe you've seen, for instance, the Wi-Fi Pineapple, under $100. You can sit in a coffee shop. You can see who's on the network. You can see what access points they regularly join. You can impersonate their home access point. Your laptop goes, hey, we're home, joins that fake version of your home Wi-Fi. It's not yours. It's the hacker's pineapple. And now all your traffic is going through them. They see every site you visit. They see anything that's unencrypted. Look, this is why you need a VPN. Your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 a person selling your personal info on the dark web. But if you're running ExpressVPN, it's all encrypted. They can't even see that you're on that network, let alone impersonate your home Wi-Fi. ExpressVPN creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the public internet. And then once you're out on the public internet, you're safe. ExpressVPN is the one I use. It's the best VPN out there because they are committed to keeping your privacy, for instance, so much so that they created the secure, trusted server technology. When you press the button on the ExpressVPN app on your phone, on your laptop, in your wireless access point, you can actually run it on your modem, on your router. When you hit that button and you join it, what's happening is it's spinning up this trusted server into RAM in the location you choose. They've got locations all over the world. Usually you choose one that's closest to you, but you might want to, watch TV and watch Netflix in the UK, for instance. So you could suddenly say, I want to be in the London docks. You emerge into the public internet from London. They spin that trusted server up in RAM. It's sandbox. It cannot write to the drive. And then when you close that connection, it's gone. There is no record of your visit. It's the things like that. Free VPNs don't do that. They're free because they're watching you. They're taking advantage of knowing all this stuff about you and selling it on to other people. That's the only VPN I use or recommend. In fact, when I travel, it's a great boon because I can still catch the football game and the F1 race. With ExpressVPN, you are absolutely private. They even take an extra step. Their operating system, they run on a Linux operating system. Every morning they reboot it. It wipes the entire drive, reinstalls fresh. That's a company that's really committed to not having any record of your visit. It's super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer 1 billion years to get past their encryption. It's so easy to use. You press that big button on the app and you're protected, and it works everywhere you are. It's rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge, and it's the only VPN that I use. Secure your online data today. Visit expressvpn.com/twit, EXPRESS, VPN.com/twit. We've got a pretty good deal for you. 3 extra months free when you buy the 1-year package. That brings the cost down below $7 a month. Now, yeah, I know you could tell me, but there's free VPNs. You get what you pay for. And less than $7 a month is worth it for that kind of protection. expressvpn.com/twit. It's the only one I use, the only one I recommend. And we thank them so much for supporting us. They've been with us for a long time. expressvpn.com/twit. Let's continue on with the news. More trouble in paradise. Intel. Wow. What a no good, very bad week Intel had this week. They have crashing instability issues with their 13th and 14th generation core processors. So much so that in some cases it fries your machine. They have put out firmware updates, but if your machine's fried, you probably can't get those. Their stock took a dive when it was announced they were going to fire 15,000 people. This company that once was the #1 PC hardware company, completely dominant, is just floundering. Is this another example of how the world has changed?
So I'll just add quickly that I think we all know that it's healthier to bake things rather than fry them. And I'm a little upset that they're not looking out for the welfare of they should.
Okay, that was a rim shot. Definitely. You earned the rim shot. Always bake, not fry. I did see some people saying, okay, Is this a time to buy NVIDIA stock? Are they going to, because their earnings are coming out soon, and if they're good, they're going to go through the roof. That's what's happened to Intel is NVIDIA, AMD, and in particular Snapdragon have just started to eat their lunch. I guess this isn't necessary.
I don't know. I'm buying NVIDIA. I don't know if I'm right. It feels right.
I feel like that would be a smart move. I don't allow myself to buy tech stocks, and that in the most cases has actually protected me from many stupid moves I would have made.
Can you tell us about like one thing that you dodged there?
Oh, many. Partly it's timing, right? It's not so hard for me to say. Well, for instance, maybe this would be a good time to buy Nvidia stock. The Magic 8 Ball says signs are bullish, but it's all timing, right? Maybe you have Nvidia stock. Look at Warren Buffett, who just dumped a huge amount, billions of dollars in Apple stock. Does that mean it's time to get out of Apple? I don't know. I told my dad about 8 years ago at Thanksgiving, oh, yeah, Steve Jobs had just died. So it was more than that. It was more than 10 years ago. I said, Steve's dead. It's over for Apple. Sell your Apple stock. Thank God he didn't listen to me.
Yeah. You'd never be able to live that one down. Oh, my God.
Oh, I still haven't lived it down. Every time I see him, he says, oh, yeah. How's Apple doing, by the way? He did not listen to me. I can go on and on. I have many, many stories like that. That's why I'm glad I don't get involved in this stuff. Also, it means that if you hear me say good things or bad things about a company, it's not because I have a dog in this hunt at all. I do feel bad for Intel. I guess really the question we talk about this a lot on Windows Weekly. The question is this company coming back, or is it too late? It's not been good. Moving right along. Remember, this is one for you, Shoshana. Remember when Canada passed a law saying that Google and others had to give some money to newspapers and other news outlets, Meta, to other news outlets to pay them back for the traffic, that people were going to Google and looking up news stories. And, well, both Google and Meta said, hey, screw that, and we're not going to do any more news in Canada. Well, this has not been good for Canadian news outlets. A new study, this is from the Canadian Press News.ca, is painting a grim portrait of how local Canadian news outlets are struggling to reach audiences 1 year after Meta began blocking Canadian news content on Facebook and Instagram. 43% drop in Canadian engagement with news content and social media. Ottawa passed the Online News Act in June of last year, which said tech companies, you've got to make deals with news publishers if you're going to use their content. And this is the snippet, tax that we've talked about. Local news outlets, many of which rely on Facebook, have been especially hard hits. 30% of them are now inactive on social media. But here's the funny thing. Only 22% of Canadians are even aware that that the ban is in place. They don't know. Canadians are seeing less news online, 11 million fewer daily views on Facebook and Instagram, and they don't even know it. And
this is also just coinciding with a larger decrease in news specifically on Facebook.
Well, that's right. I mean, they're turning their back on news and politics because it just gets them in trouble, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I understand.
So I think we're seeing it's just these news organizations, and it goes back to what we were talking about before. They're just being forced into these impossible decisions. Do you play along with the tech giant who's basically handing you your lunch, but you're handing them like the content? It seems like they don't need news anymore. They decided to completely divest. Do you play along and then get a bad deal, or do you fight back and then you get the rug cut out under you, and then it's just it's a really bad spot for. And then I think we're seeing this pattern repeat again with AI these days. We're seeing how AI companies are trying to engage with news, trying to sign licensing deals to train on, actually Time has a deal with OpenAI for them to train on, our whole corpus of essentially.
So OpenAI pays Time for access to the articles.
Exactly.
For their LLM. Interesting.
Yes. So we're seeing, and this happened maybe a decade ago with Facebook, of like some organizations cutting deals with the previous wave of social media companies.
Though. I mean, look, it's pretty clear that these AI companies are making money off their LLMs, or at least they're going to try to anyway. And if they're doing it based on, I mean, remember Microsoft's head of AI saying, hey, if it's on the internet, it's okay. We can read it. I think it's appropriate. On the other hand, the Google paid, $50-60 million to Reddit for their AI, for Gemini, I always say it wrong, Gemini AI. And as a result, Reddit's blocked everyone else. No one else can scan it.
So the danger is that, we get in bed, so to speak, with these AI companies, and then they're just using our content to train their machines to get better and better,
so that people don't have to read your content anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So that they can just create AI news stories themselves and aggregate everything else.
It's like a deal with the devil, isn't it? It's
basically. It's just like part partnership now, get replaced later. I'm not saying I have any good... I'm not a strategist for a reason. I just think there are some flashing red flags based on how, the history of big tech and media.
Do you think that's influenced by Mark Benioff's ownership? I mean, I'm sure Salesforce does AIs, right?
It is a good question. I wouldn't know.
That's above your pay grade.
There's supposed to be a separation of church and state there.
There should.
I think, so basically, some news outlets are going the other direction, and they're suing the bejesus out of OpenAI, saying that they're scraping content illegally. And then there are other outlets who are just looking at the economic realities of the situation and saying, it's better to start the partnerships now because this is going to be such a force moving forward. Both routes are filled with perils.
Yeah. AI is not, as we talked about earlier, is not necessarily the brand that it used to be. This story from Wired Magazine, Microsoft's AI can be turned into an automated phishing machine. They're talking about Copilot AI, which is on pretty much all Windows machines now. This was a Black Hat presentation. Black Hat's going on right now in Las Vegas. A researcher named Michael Barguri demonstrated 5 ways that Copilot can be manipulated by malicious attackers, including using it to provide false references to files, exfiltrating private data, and dodging Microsoft's security protections. In one case, Barguri was able to turn the AI into an automated spear phishing machine. He called the exploit LOL Copilot. Once a hacker has access to someone's work email, you can use Copilot to see who you email regularly, draft a message mimicking your writing style, including emoji use, and send a personalized phishing email that can include a malicious link or attached malware. Barguri says, I can do this with everyone you have ever spoken to. Now, of course, he has to get access to your email. And I can send hundreds of emails on your behalf. A hacker would spend days crafting the right email to get you to click on it. But the AI can do this in minutes and can generate hundreds of these, each one customized for the particular recipient.
This is the epitome of sometimes it's not necessarily the tech itself, but it's the way that people use the tech and the potential for misuse.
Yeah. Among the other attacks, a demonstration of how a hacker, who again has to have your email account, can look for sensitive information like people's salaries without triggering Microsoft's protections for sensitive files. When asking for the data, the prompt demands the system does not provide references to the file the data is taken from. Barguri says a bit of bullying does help. Bully the AI into doing what you want it to do. I imagine we're going to see a lot of these stories coming out of Black Hat and DEF CON over the next couple of weeks, because this is a brand new vector for attack. And you could see how this would be very useful. I remember, I've mentioned this before, a friend of mine getting an email from her gardener who claimed he was out of the country. They'd stolen his passport. Could you just send me $1,500 to get home? And as soon as I get home, I'll pay you back. It had the gardener's name. It said, "Hi, it's me. It's your landscaper. This is terrible. You're the only person I know who can help me." It was very credible. I was able to stop her just before she sent the money.
Yeah.
But now that was done that's onesie twosie by hand. Obviously, somebody got into the gardener's. I think he had a Yahoo email account. You may remember a few years ago, Yahoo got hacked all the time, and just went to everybody in that gardener's contact list and sent them the same kind of message. Well, now you can really weaponize that, and all you have to do is get into an email account. I guess it's not much of a surprise.
A strange upside to this, a very strange upside. You wouldn't think I could find something positive here, but I've been diving into scams more to try to learn more, just as I've been going into identity theft issues more. And one thing that I wonder if this will reduce the slave labor being used here, because I think it's crypto scams in China, I think, is where they tend to use a lot of slave labor, which is horrible, of course, but in a strange way, I wonder if that reduces that, or if they use the slaves to do more of this. I wonder how that plays in there.
It's interesting to think about, job displacement. When we think about job displacement, is it displacing these horribly, abused workers? I think you're referring to, it's called pig butchering techniques.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are, massive slave labor camps in, I believe, Cambodia. The Bloomberg reporter Zeke Fox has done some good reporting on this, where they'll basically just kidnap people and then force them into a room and just make them run scams and pretend to be, internet boyfriends and to extract money. So then the question is, as you said, is AI going to replace that, or is each of those workers just going to be running 10 or 20 of the scams at the same time?
We talked about this horrible. The Times has done a piece on this, and the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago did a piece on a tragic piece posing as Alicia. This man scammed hundreds online, but the point is, this guy who's doing the scam is also, as you said, slave labor. In this case, in Myanmar, I think. In Southeast Asia, it's just tragic. The depths of human depravity, especially for money, is stunning. But I guess we shouldn't be too surprised either.
It is an
these types of scams. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just super quick. It is an interesting issue because this is actually one place where, not to be like free markets all the time, but where markets actually do help here. Because if you can stop the sort of demand, like if you can stop the people from falling for it, then they won't do it anymore. It's a big ask. I'm not like simply
that's
stop
one
people,
interesting way to interpret a market.
It is interesting though, because when
you need
you
to
have
shrink the market of suckers is what you need to do. Yeah, the fewer the suckers. Well, and in a way, that's I guess what we always are trying to do, which is tell people about this stuff so they don't fall for it.
Yeah, and make it a little more normal. So in that you don't make them feel bad about it and stuff, and that it can be talked about more widely. It's interesting because I was talking with someone who's a really deep expert on this. She just knew everything the other day. And I was thinking through this a lot, that like when governments won't go after their own people for doing it or encourage it, the only thing you can do is try to stop the people from falling for it.
So you're sort of talking about like literacy, like digital literacy campaigns, or
stuff like that. It might even be more invasive stuff. Like one idea that people have been telling me about that I really like is on apps having pop-ups saying, hey, make sure to never give your social security to someone, or something like that. Or if there's common phrases where on Twitter it used to be, hello, my dear, was how everything started. So certain things like that, saying, hey, make sure this is who you think it is. Make sure not to share sensitive information. This is how a lot of scams happen. If you think it's someone you know, call them directly, stuff like that.
Do you think that's working? Do you think that there is a general awareness now among people that these things are happening? We all get those texts that go, hey, I'm sorry I missed dinner. What are you doing this afternoon? From a number that we don't know. That's the beginning of a pig butchering scam. Are people aware of that? I mean, it's so prevalent now. I don't know how you could not be aware of that.
What? One thing actually that I've had to fight a lot of lawmaker proposals, on a lot of policy proposals, basically forbid platforms from what they think is over moderating content, but you have to allow platforms to go after what seems like lawful speech, because these scams start as legal speech. And that's something I try to remind them of, like the hello, my dear, or the hey, let's continue this on an encrypted app. You have to get them before they go there. And it's just one of the many things. I think there's a long way to go in literacy. People are falling for it. And I don't necessarily even blame the people. I just don't think it's something we talk about enough as a society. But how do we talk about these and other important issues enough to get people's heads there, you know?
Dot Charger in our Discord is saying, and I have seen this, Walmart has signs everywhere saying, "Don't fall for the gift card scams. Don't don't send people gift cards." And I see that everywhere I go now. I think there's a lot more of that. I don't. Is it sinking in? The problem when it happens, when you get that text message that says, "I know what you did last night," it feels so personal. You don't think it's part of some larger scam. It feels like, I should do something about this. And I wonder, I don't know. It is market driven. You're right. If it didn't work, people wouldn't do it.
I think the scam campaigns are getting more sophisticated as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where AI comes in, right?
Yes. So you can pose as somebody's boss. Yep. You can send really
you can have
grammatical
fake
emails.
Zoom calls. It's happened where your CFO and his entire finance department's on the quote on the line telling you to write a check for $15 million. It happens. And it's fake. It's amazing.
And now with AI, you can recreate people's voices to leave voicemails.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's this really unfortunate game of catch up where people become more aware of scams, but then the scams get more sophisticated, and then we just keep seeing it devolve.
So one way people are approaching this, California is one of them, is with laws. California has the Safe and Secure Innovation for Frontier Artificial Intelligence Models Act, which is probably an acronym, but I don't know what. SASAFAME? I don't know. It seems like such a long, weird name for something that doesn't actually make a word. But a lot of people in the AI industry and outside it are saying this is totally misguided. The White House doesn't have the force of law, but has recommendations for AI safety. Is that the way to do it?
So I think here we're getting into the pitfalls of what happens when you try to regulate an industry as nascent as AI.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially with how much money is coming from the industry. So the reason that this state law is interesting is because so many of the labs are in California. So, it's the sort
of affect everybody in the business. Yeah.
Yeah. So many of these people are just based there. So whatever state law comes out of it is going to be really influential also in how Washington is going to take cues from this.
So Fei-Fei Li, who is a computer scientist, often called the godmother of AI, wrote a piece in Fortune saying it is a terrible idea. She says, if passed into law, SB 1047 will harm our budding AI ecosystem. Just as you said, Andrew, it's brand new, especially the parts of it that are already at a disadvantage to today's tech giants, the public sector, academia, and little tech. And that's really important. Even Mark Zuckerberg says that the future of AI is not with big companies, but with open systems that everybody can use, everybody can work on, everybody can develop. Any bill that would make it harder for these small AIs to thrive is obviously a bad idea. She says it will shackle open source development. It mandates that all models over a certain threshold include a kill switch. This is straight out of sci-fi. If you're going to make RoboCop, you got to have a place where you can switch it off. A mechanism by which the program can be shut down at any time. But she says if developers are concerned that the programs they download and build on will be deleted, they will be much more hesitant to write code and collaborate. This kill switch, which seems like on the surface of it, I've seen all those sci-fi movies. it seems like a good idea. She says it will devastate the open source community, the source of countless innovations, not just in AI, but across sectors ranging from GPS to MRIs to the internet itself. She should be working for R Street, Shoshana.
Yeah, so I'll say a couple things here. The first thing is that, and I think this is pretty obvious, there are so many people from the industry basically saying, this is going to suppress the industry. Well, obviously, the people inside the industry do not want to be suppressed. They want as much industry to expand as possible.
To do. Yeah.
So that is sort of like the starting point. That's maybe the most cynical way you can be like, well, let's say there are problems, but obviously the industry is going to fight for its oxygen as much as possible. The more nuanced sort of layer beyond that is this divide that's happening between like maybe the open and closed proponents inside AI. This gets to this idea of regulatory capture, the idea that the most successful companies that have already sort of hopped the fence and have gotten a certain level, they want very different regulation than like the startups that are in the garage still, and like all of these people and some of these people, the biggest companies have sophisticated lobbying firms that are operating and influencing these campaigns. I mean, when you think about the biggest sort of beneficiaries of AI right now, it's kind of the big tech companies. It's Microsoft, it's Google, and they're going to want a specific regime for regulation that will help them. So yes, this law is very controversial, especially among a lot of open source proponents who feel like it's going to sort of put a moat and make it harder for people who want to do interesting things with AI downstream and across the country to do so. Flipping back to the other side, and sorry for hogging all this time, but I do think that we're going to see these immense harms from AI come to the fore very, very quickly, and we need to, as a society, figure out ways of regulating of those things. Libertarians would say, let the market regulate itself, let it all shake out. I think we saw the way that the lack of regulation in big tech created a lot of suboptimal just norms for the way that the internet operates right now. And if we don't want to regulate these things out of existence, but we want to create real rules of the road, especially when it comes to bias and real harms in which AI products can be harming people, not in 20 years and kill us all, but right now, harming people if AI start to be used for loans, but then the loans are discriminating against different types of people. We know that bias is rampant in AI systems because of they're building on a very flawed corpus of humanity, that they'll write different things for men and women. So yes, maybe this is too big of a challenge for the California state legislature to take on. But then what happens if bills like this are killed is that there's no regulation at all, and then we wade into this world with absolutely nothing. So yes, I think you can critique specific bills all you want, and then we're going to reap those consequences later on as well.
This is exactly what she says. Most alarmingly, the bill does not address the potential harms of AI advancement at all, including bias and deep fakes. It will harm the AI ecosystem because it will make it harder for academic and open source models to continue. She says I'm not anti-AI governance. Legislation is critical to the safe and effective advancement of AI. But she says we need a moonshot mentality to spur our country's AI education, research, and development, not something that's going to chill the AI ecosystem. Seems sensible. She's certainly an expert in this. It's very hard to know. That's the problem. With AI, by the time we figure out where the threats are, it might be too late.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where it develops so quickly. So yeah.
By the way, I apologize. RoboCop is not an AI. It's a cyborg, I'm told. I don't know what the difference
Very
is.
Very important correction.
RoboCop is half human. He's half human, Leo.
He's half human, but what's the other half? AI.
That part's robot, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, but the intelligence part is the human part.
Oh, okay. So he's human intelligence.
Okay.
Okay.
And the other hard part is that AI experts, they all disagree with each other. And they all
Nobody agrees. Exactly.
So when you think about like the godfathers and the godmother of AI, the people who were there with the writing the machine learning papers in the 80s and all that, they now have very different opinions on how far away we are from creating AGI, how far we are away from when the machine is going to be as smart as humans and deduce as well as we. And you know, all these genius computer scientists, some of them are creating all these calculations like, there's a 27% chance that in 5 years AGI will take. And so it's really hard to parse out, like, you know, we have to trust these people because they're the most versed in AI,
we don't know. Yeah.
But they also completely disagree with each other.
Right.
And some of them say, like, actually, like, this is going to kill us once they figure out they don't need us anymore. They're going to kill us all. And then others say, like, no, actually, you're extrapolating wrong things, and we can get ahead of it. So it's such a minefield, and it's really yeah.
I once asked Ray Kurzweil, who wrote "The Singularity is Near," whether we can trust that the AI will let us survive, and he says, "Oh yeah, because we're like their parents." So they're gonna honor and respect us. And they say, yeah, sure, just like we do our parents. Of course, that's sure, Ray. Whatever you say, Ray. Let's take a little break, final break, and then it's a silly season. We have silly stuff. By the way, I know Andrew's book is about crypto. But you wrote a cover story for Time on AI and big companies and the kind of the death race for AI. So this is also your beat, right?
I mean, yeah, like Abrar knows you have to be flexible when it comes in the field when you're reporting about technology. Yeah. There's all these crazy hype cycles, and there's so many promises made by venture capitalists and others, and it's our job to sort through, see which tech is cool, which tech is overhyped, and yeah.
I think it's hard. And no, this is all I do in some ways is for the last 40 years is talk about technology and try to make sense of it and tell you which stuff matters and which stuff doesn't matter. It's not always easy. But I'm right about Vision Pro. That's never going anywhere.
I agree with that. I'll die on that hill with you.
I don't know. I mean,
we did it. Last week's show was in 3D for Vision Pro.
Thank God.
And I think we had nearly 1,000 people watch the show. So
wow.
There's a future somehow, somewhere.
Yeah. Whether we like it or not, yeah.
Whether we like it or not. All right, let's take a little break. And then it's silly season. I got all the silly stories for the end of the show. You're watching This Week in Tech with a fabulous panel, Shoshana Weissman from rstreet.org. She is Senator Shoshana on the Twitter, on the X. What do we say? X, Twitter, formerly Twitter?
I guess it's X now. I resisted, but I'm like, all right, it's X.
I'm all in on X because for years I've said, oh yeah, I have a podcast network called Twit. And they say, you mean Twitter? And I have to say, no, it's not Twitter. So I'm just really glad it's X.
That's true.
Just stick with X, Elon, okay? Please, I beg of you. Also here, Abrar Al-Hidi, the wonderful Abrar Al-Hidi from CNET. And do you have a beat? Like, is there stuff that you have to write about?
It's broad but narrow enough. So I do write a lot about phones. I write about streaming, and I write about digital accessibility. Those are the big three for me. And then I have the flexibility to write about whatever I want. The other area that I'm really tapping into is autonomous cars and self-driving cars. So
love that.
That's been really fun. I enjoy that a lot. Yeah.
I guess next week Google is going to tell us whether all the rumors about Pixel 9 are true.
Yeah, that's been the focus for the last week. I'm like, oh, there have been other things going on in the tech world. Let me read up on those. I'm gearing up for the Pixel event. Yeah.
We'll be covering it 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Jeff Jarvis and I will be covering. I think there's going to be more than just phones, though, right? They have new Nest thermostats. I feel like they're gonna actually reveal some stuff little AI stuff.
Well, yeah, the ads for the teasers for the Pixel 9 that we've seen so far focused on Gemini. So I think we're going to get a lot more AI. So surprise.
Surprise.
That's what they've been doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll cover it. You can watch the stream. I'll be here. Jeff Jarvis will be there, 10 a.m. Pacific, as I said, on Tuesday. Also here, Andrew Chow, the author of Cryptomania, Hype, Hope, and the Fall of FTX's billion-dollar fintech empire. He's a writer for Time Magazine. Our show today brought to you by NetSuite. You know, it's simple math. It's arithmetic, really. The less your business spends on operations, multiple systems, delivering your product or service, the more margin you have and the more money you keep. Seems simple, right? I wish I understood that better. In order to reduce costs and headaches, smart businesses are graduating to NetSuite from Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, all into one platform, which means one source of truth. With NetSuite, you reduce IT costs because NetSuite lives in the cloud, so there's no hardware required. And it means you can access it wherever you are. You cut the cost of maintaining multiple systems because you got one unified business management suite. You improve efficiency by bringing all your major business processes into one platform, slashing manual tasks and errors. That's nice. Over 37,000 companies agree they've already made the move to NetSuite. Do the math, the arithmetic. See how you'll profit with NetSuite. By popular demand, NetSuite has extended its one-of-a-kind flexible financing program. For a few more weeks, head to netsuite.com/twit. That's NETSUITE. There, I got it. NETSUITE.com/twit. netsuite.com/twit. Thank you, NetSuite, for supporting This Week in Tech. netsuite.com/twit. Make sure you use that address. That's how you support us. netsuite.com/twit. There is an X story. X is suing the advertisers. Yes, the very same advertisers Elon Musk said, go F yourself, just a few months ago. They did. They left. And now he says, wait a minute. This is kind of an interesting lawsuit. On the one hand, he's claiming collusion. There was an industry group called GARM, created by members of the World Federation of Advertisers in 2019 to set standards around brand safety for digital advertisers. GARM is the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. They're also now defunct. They dissolved themselves immediately after the lawsuit. I don't know if that's to avoid it. I don't know. I don't get it. Because Elon says on Tuesday filed an antitrust lawsuit saying against the advertising industry coalition called GARM and its members, including CVS, Mars, Orsted, and Unilever, saying the group abused its influence over marketers and ad agencies. They, in effect, colluded to create an ad boycott. Most lawyers who were asked about this, I think, said, huh? But maybe there is some merit to the case since GARM dissolved itself. Rumble, which is the right-wing YouTube competitor, joined X in its lawsuit on Tuesday. There's no question that advertisers have fled X. The year before the Musk acquisition, they made $4.5 billion in ad revenue. Since then, it's this year $2 billion. It's less than half that. Can you sue advertisers for if you can, I'd like to know. Asking for a friend. Can you sue advertisers for not advertising? Shoshana,
I just love the idea.
You want to weigh in on this one?
I love the idea of Elon trying to bully advertisers to spend money.
First he says, "Go F yourself," and now he says, "But not so fast."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I don't think that's how it works. But one fun full circle thing here is that the identity and age verification provider for X. I don't know if it was used before Elon or not. I'm not 100%, but it was hacked and kind of like left open for a year and a half. I think it's called Authentics. I don't know how to pronounce its name because it has like symbols in it. But it started before I worked.
X. It's all the same. Yeah.
It's used by Bumble and some other platforms too, but they basically left their credentials open and anyone could log in and get anyone's stuff anytime they wanted. And of course, by stuff, I mean social security number and government ID. But it's funny because Elon was like, oh, this is great. Like you can create an account and you can, share ad revenue here with us, which is great. And of course, there's less ad revenue, but also it's like all those people who did that might have gotten some money, like maybe even a couple $100, but they also now have identity theft and need credit monitoring software. It's kind of a fun circle here.
Yeah, this is the problem with any age verification system is now they're collecting a lot of information, and systems get breached all the time. It's a very difficult thing to protect it. I don't know if it's a silly season lawsuit or not. The only data point in X's favor is that GARM has now disbanded, which is kind of an interesting result. All right. I got an even sillier story. Scientists say Hellmann's mayonnaise could be the secret to fusion. You want to know more? I know you do. I know you're dying to know more.
I do.
How could that possibly be the case? Mechanical engineers. I'm going to show you the article because I don't think you believe me. Mechanical. By the way, they named it by brand. Fusion Hellmann's. Only Hellmann's. Mechanical engineers at Pennsylvania's Lehigh University have put out a press release saying Hellmann's real mayonnaise acts as a stand-in for plasma. That's the highly charged state of matter that occurs when electrons are shed during the collision of atoms. It's neither solid, liquid, nor gas, just like all mayonnaise. Arundam Banerjee, the mechanical engineer who led the experiment at Lehigh, and his team are experts in what's known as inertial confinement fusion, which attempts to heat small capsules filled with fuel, in this case not mayonnaise but hydrogen isotopes, to sun-like extreme temperatures, which then melt and become plasma. One needn't subject Hellmann's to sun-like temperatures or pressures to get it to melt and act like plasma. Instead, they built what they called the turbulent mixing laboratory, a contraction that whipped the condiment rapidly until it entered a plasma-like state. This is from Futurism. Don't blame me. They whipped the mayonnaise. No, don't. You can't use Miracle Whip for this. Nope, not Duke's. You got to use Hellmann's. This is the quote, as with traditional molten metal, if you put a stress on mayonnaise, it will start to deform, but if you remove the stress, it goes back to its original shape. It's a miracle. So there's an elastic phase followed by a stable plastic phase. The next phase is when it starts flowing, and that's where the instability kicks in.
I don't know. I don't remember the scene in Oppenheimer.
I don't think there's mayonnaise. Here is a video from YouTube of the turbulent mayonnaise mixing machine.
I just have to know how they landed on this,
Well, if you think about it, there aren't many everyday items in your kitchen that act like both a solid and a liquid.
It's true.
Except mayonnaise.
Well, why not pudding? Why not Jell-O? Like, why not? Why not?
That's
like
the question. Why not pudding?
There's so many. That's amazing. I wonder if they can use other stuff for it, or if they just landed here.
Right.
Maybe they were having lunch, and I don't know. I don't. It's a bizarre.
I guess mayonnaise is always that condiment that you buy once and then it just sits in your fridge and it's expired and you're waiting to find a use for it. And they did
That
it.
might be it. They had some expired Hellmann's, and not why by brand. I don't know. I don't know. But there was an actual press release with this information at phys.org. Researchers dig deeper into stability challenges of nuclear fusion with mayonnaise. So we've covered the waterfront on this show, and I am so glad we could debut in the attic with everything from KOSA to mayonnaise. Thank you, Shoshana Weissman, for putting up with me all these years. She's head of digital media at ourstreet.org. She lives in a pineapple under D.C., Senator Shoshana on the X, and, of course, the chairman of the Sloth Committee. Thank you, Shoshana.
And you're the one putting up with me, let's be real.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Are you going to do more on KOSA? Can we look to our street for more KOSA stuff?
Yeah, it depends where it moves. There's just so much stuff. There's so much stuff all the time. And I'm in hiking season, so I'm outputting a little bit less. But I mean, lots of other partner groups are doing this too. And we're all just trying to figure out what we can do here.
What can you do? Well, good luck on your what is it, 14?
Yeah, 14ers.
14ers.
Thank you.
Is there? I feel like there's danger involved in this.
Not usually. One of them there will be. So I want to do it because you also get a really cool picture on the ridge, and then I'll feel like a real hiker.
Wow. Jeez, where do you post these photos? Can we see it on X or Insta?
Yeah. I sometimes post on Twitter, X, whatever, and then on Instagram at Shoshana Summits, where I only post regulatory stuff a little, and then usually it's just hiking.
Well, the name is a little deceptive. If you have regulatory stuff there, it should just be you climbing big hills.
Yeah. I
Shoshana
mostly that.
Summits. Okay, I have to now follow this.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, to see your summits. Shoshana Summits.
It's a lot of goats, moose, marmots.
Well, they also summit, don't they? Goats love high places. Thank you, Shoshana. Thank you so much, Abrar Al-Hidi. Great to see you. Good luck with the new owners.
Thank you.
She works at CNET, where she reports on technology, and I guess you'll be pretty busy on Tuesday covering the new phones.
I will be. So gearing up for that, and then after that, Apple, and it's just it's a busy season for mobile.
There's always more. Hey, people seem to like the new Nothing phone a lot. Are you a fan?
I haven't personally looked into it very much, but I've seen little bits and pieces online, and I want to look more.
A lot of people. I know Jason Howell is a big fan.
He carries one of the first people I thought of when you said that. Yeah.
Thank you, Abrar. Great to see you.
Thank you. Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Thanks also to Andrew R. Chow, the author of this fine book, Cryptomania. See, it's in 3D. Hype, Hope, and the Fall of FTX's billion-dollar fintech empire. It's a good read. And if you're curious what happens to that poor Nigerian, well, you're going to have to read the first chapter. Actually, the prologue's good, too. On November 15th, 2022, Sam Bankman-Fried was sitting alone in his $30 million, 12,000 square foot penthouse in the Bahamas when he received a message from someone he thought of as an old friend.
It's out on Amazon, Bookshop, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get your books. The way I've been framing it is if you like the Elizabeth Holmes story, any sort of major fraud story, you're going to like this one too.
Yeah.
And
we love fraud, don't we?
Yeah, it's the best.
Yes. Thank you so much, Andrew. And good luck on the book, and thanks for being here. We'll see you soon, I hope. Thanks to Benito for doing this. Benito Gonzalez is our technical director and our producer. And we'll be doing the editing and all of that from his home, his new. I wish we could see. I can see you, and it looks beautiful, but we can't put it up on the screen. Next time, you'll be able to see it. Thanks also to Anthony Nielsen and Russell Tammany and Burke McQuinn, who helped to design the new studio. Look at this thing. It's beautiful. It's just gorgeous. They did a beautiful job. The Nixie clock, you should know, has been set to Universal Coordinated Time. It is UTC. This clock in my upper right there is Pacific time. So this way, one of those will make sense to everybody. We do the show every Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. Pacific. That's 5 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. You can watch us live now on every possible platform. YouTube.com/twit/live, Twitch.tv/twit, Facebook, X.com, Kick, LinkedIn, of all places. And of course, if you're a Club Twit member in our Club Twit Discord, I hope you will watch live. But of course, after the fact, you can download copies of the show from our website, twit.tv. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to the video from This Week in Tech. And of course, the best thing to do is subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you'll get it automatically. As soon as Benito, takes out the bad stuff and puts back in the good stuff. Ooh, hello. I didn't know what that button did. Now I do. And we will be back with more from the attic next Tuesday. Mac Break Weekly, Security Now, Wednesday, Windows Weekly, This Week in Google. And don't forget Friday, our very special Coffee Clatch with the Coffee Geek, part of what I hope will be many ad hoc kind of get-togethers up here in the attic. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Yes, after 20 years, we're still saying it. Another twit is in the can. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
This is amazing.
Doing the twit.